Order, roll call.
Tolbert, Busuri, Jalali Nelson, Naker, Prince, Tao, Council President Bren Moen. 6 present, 7 present, no one absent.
Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Consent agenda items 7 through 32 are before you for your consideration.
And I understand we are taking number 12 separately. Is there anything else that needs separate consideration? Oh, and item number 31
Is being withdrawn.
is being withdrawn. So taking 12 separately and item 31 being withdrawn. Anything else on consent? All right, seeing none, Mr. Tao moves approval of the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The consent agenda is adopted as amended. Item number 12, Resolution 19-2078, approving the West 7th Street parking study of West 7th Street between Seven Corners and St. Clair Avenue.
And I believe we are getting a brief staff report. Yes. Welcome.
Good afternoon, council members and Council President Bren Moen. Thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly on the West 7th Street parking study. The area has relatively recently experienced steady and substantial growth in commercial and residential land uses. As a result, there is now a classic combination of successful commercial corridor and a strong residential neighborhood, leading to a not unfamiliar and vigorous discussion of parking. At the request of the community, the City Council directed PED staff to perform a parking study to examine existing conditions, gather community input, determine if there are any significant patterns or notable rhythms of use, identify specific locations and times of intensive use, and propose responses to these conditions. The study included background research and area mapping, both formal and informal analysis of the parking supply and actual demand, including the recording of parking occupancy and duration, stakeholder interviews, both group and individual, an electronic survey, the development of a variety of alternative actions or big ideas, and 2 public open houses to gather ideas from the community and for the community to respond to ideas. The alternative actions were reviewed and ranked by external and internal participants in the process, both for popularity and/or priority and feasibility and/or implementability, as well as potential benefits and potential costs, and categorized by short-term or long-term in a matrix and are summarized in your resolution. A group of external and internal participants have continued to meet in an effort to refine these ideas and move forward on implementation.
Are there any questions? Ms. Naker?
Thank you. No questions, just really want to thank Mr. Courier and PED staff, as well as the West 7th Fort Road Federation for their work on this. I don't remember exactly what you said, Ross. Was it a classically something combination? You had a really good phrase there that captured.
A classic combination of a successful commercial corridor and a strong residential neighborhood.
Those words exactly, and that's sort of the double-edged sword that I think the neighborhood is excited about the growth, and at the same time we're seeing this competition for scarce parking space. So I was really encouraged by the big ideas that came out of the study, and as Ross mentioned, the work is just beginning now. I'm really committed to taking forward the recommendations that are in the study, but we wanted to do the official step today of actually approving it here. So,
Great. Any further discussion? So we'll take that as a motion from Ms. Naker. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted. Item number 33, final adoption of ordinance 19-64, granting the application of David Witherell to rezone property at 600-602 Lawson Avenue West from RM2 multiple family residential to T2 traditional neighborhood and amending Chapter 60 of the Legislative Code pertaining to the zoning map.
And this is before us for the final time. Is there any discussion on this item before we vote? Seeing none, I move approval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The ordinance is adopted. Item number 34, final adoption of ordinance 19-69, amending section 105.04 of the Legislative Code to aid construction of Boulevard Rain Gardens.
And this also is before us for the final time. Is there any discussion on this item? Seeing none, Ms. Jalali moves approval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The ordinance is adopted. Item number 35, first reading of ordinance 19-72, amending chapters 65 and 66 of the Legislative Code pertaining to hotel, motel, and inn. This ordinance is laid over to December 11th for second reading. Item number 36, first reading of ordinance 19-73, granting the application of Blackstone One LLC to rezone property at Inglewood Avenue from R4 Single Family Residential to RT2 Townhouse Residential and amending Chapter 60 of the Legislative Code pertaining to the zoning map. This ordinance is laid over to December 11th for second reading. Item number 37, first reading of ordinance 19-74, amending Chapter 2.02 of the Administrative Code by creating the Office of Financial Empowerment. This ordinance is laid over to December 11th for second reading. Item number 38, first reading of ordinance 19-75, amending Chapter 33 of the Legislative Code pertaining to establishment of permit fees, certificate of compliance, and fence requirements. This ordinance is laid over to December 11th for second reading. Item number 39, first reading of ordinance 19-78, amending Chapter 310 of the Legislative Code pertaining to uniform license procedures as it relates to the license fee schedule. This ordinance is laid over to December 11th for second reading. Item number 40, resolution public hearing 19-389, amending the financing and spending plans in the general government accounts operating budget for 2019 flood-related expenses in the amount of $4 million.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? Seeing none, Mr. Tao moves to close the public hearing and approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 41, resolution public hearing 19-392, amending the city's capital improvement budget and operating budget to reflect the final sale details resulting from the issuance of the GO refunding bonds, Series 2019H, and the taxable GO street improvement special assessment refunding bonds, Series 2019I.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? Seeing none, Ms. Prince moves to close the public hearing and approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 42, resolution public hearing 19-391, amending the financing and spending plans in the fire department for the Minnesota Task Force 1 team reimbursement from the city of Edina in the amount of $27,588.30.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? It's just muttering that we'll take their money. Sorry. Seeing none, Ms. Naker moves to close the public hearing and approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 43, resolution public hearing 19-395, amending the financing and spending plans in the fire department in the amount of $32,400 for the 2018 hazardous materials emergency preparedness grant.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? Seeing none, Ms. Jalali moves to close the public hearing and approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 44, resolution public hearing 19-374, amending the 2019 spending and financing budget in the Department of Public Works General Fund Traffic Signals Accounting Unit by $128,762.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? Seeing none, Mr. Tolbert moves to close the public hearing and approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Legislative hearing consent agenda items 45 through 68 are before you for your consideration.
Good afternoon, Ms. Mormont.
Good afternoon. I'm not aware of anyone here to testify on a legislative hearing item.
Okay. We are looking at items 45 to 68 on the agenda. If you are here to speak to any item between 45 and 68, this is a public hearing. Seeing none, Ms. Naker moves to close the public hearing and approve. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the consent agenda is adopted as amended.
All right, we just reached the end of our 3:30 meeting. Before we adjourn, is there any news from the wards that folks would like to share? Sorry to put you on the spot. I know we're deep in budget talks today, and I kind of didn't expect folks to be prepared for this, but nevertheless. Okay, great. Well, if not, we are in recess until 5:30. Council is back in order. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bucieri, Jalali Nelson, Naker, Prince, Tao, Council President Bren Moen. 7 present, no one absent.
So before we get started here tonight, I do want to welcome people to the council chambers. It's a big night tonight. We're talking about Ford. We're talking truth and taxation. There's lots of other things on our agenda. It's a little clunky because a time certain for our truth and taxation hearing starts at 6 o'clock. So I'm going to say a couple things right now that I might repeat again at 6 o'clock, depending on who shows up. But we have noticed our statutorily required truth and taxation hearing to begin as close to 6 as possible, not before, but at 6 or just immediately thereafter. So we may do some maneuvering to make sure that we start that truth and taxation hearing at close to 6 o'clock. I will just share that we have the Ramsey County's Assessor's Office in the hall today. So if people are here to talk about their home value increasing, we encourage you to talk to the Ramsey County Assessor because the Ramsey County Assessor does home values. Our city finance team is also in the hall with a tax estimator tool. If you're here to talk about the city tax level, they are able to look at the tax estimator and determine what your tax would look like for the city if it did not have a 22.23% levy increase. We'll be talking about that later. So those resources are available here today. So we are going to start out our agenda today with our public hearings. We are giving up to 15 minutes per side. And then again, when we get to our 6 o'clock hour, we'll be moving towards the truth and taxation hearing, where we'll have people testifying for up to 2 minutes per person. Everybody who wants to speak at Truth and Taxation should have a number. They're issuing them also out in the hall. There's a lot going on in the hall. And let's see. And we, as I mentioned, we will repeat that information at this time, or at that time. We will plan to hear the Ford resolution after the Truth and Taxation hearing. We're also will be adjourning or recessing the council, convening our HRA, and then reconvening the city council to do some technical moves that we need to do by the end of the year. So that is all fun stuff to look forward to. So with that, I'm going to get us started on our regularly scheduled public hearing. And again, we'll look for 6 o'clock for the beginning of our truth and taxation hearing.
Item number 69, ordinance 19-71, amending Chapter 24.03 of the Administrative Code related to financial disclosure requirements.
All right, and is there a staff report on this item? I don't believe there is. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? All right, seeing none, Ms. Naker moves to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the ordinance is laid over to December 11th for final adoption. Item number 70, resolution public hearing 19-364, adopting the Frogtown District 7 plan as an addendum to the St. Paul Comprehensive Plan.
And do we have a staff report on
Yeah,
this?
staff report, thank you.
Excellent, great. Welcome.
Oh, cool. Hey, thanks. Good evening, council members.
Evening.
Before I start, we had a couple minor last-minute revisions, some of the policies and such. So I'm Tony Johnson. I'm a senior city planner in PED, and I'm the neighborhood planner for Frogtown. Tonight, I'm presenting on our district plan, the SMAPL, which is the neighborhood plan for District 7 and St. Paul's first ever graphic novel neighborhood plan. So this was a planning effort that was led by FNA, the district council, as well as the community, with support from me as the planner. So the the format of the plan is much different than you typically see in other neighborhood plans. In the document, we have a number of characters, the SMAPLites, which represent different policy chapters within the plan. So One of our characters, for example, is Allie Gardner, and she's our land use and landscape design expert, and Earl House, who is our housing expert. And kind of how the plan is formatted is it starts in the graphic novel portion where the characters are going through and kind of discussing issues within the community. And then throughout the plan, we have kind of stats embedded about the community like you would typically see in other neighborhood plans. And through kind of, their hijinks throughout the graphic novel, it finally leads into a big idea, which is to sculpt Frogtown into a mixed-use urban village. It then leads into kind of our policies that we're advocating for, and some of them that I'll highlight within the plan is that we're calling for missing middle housing types, and a big focus on anti-displacement policies as well. And so with that, I would be happy to answer any questions or take any comments.
Mr. Todd?
I want to recognize you, Tony, for your work and the amount of time and energy that you put into this, and really well thought out, and working with FNA and members of the community. And I want to recognize you for that. And the graphic novel, I thought that was a great idea. And so really want to thank you for your work, and look forward to doing other creative ordinance in Ward 1 and along the corridor. Thank you.
And I want to just echo what you just said, and also we've talked often about looking at our city's letters and our communications out to community members, whether it's an abatement order or notification about a meeting. And I think the idea of using graphics and characters is a way to really capture people's attention and have it feel like a friendly reach out as opposed to an enforcement type of feel. So hopefully this will help pave the way towards moving forward with that type of change as well. So I appreciate that very much. Any other thoughts? Okay, thank you so much for the report. This is a public hearing. If there are folks here to speak on in opposition to the plan, now would be the time to do that. And if there are folks here to speak in support, now would be a great time to do that. Welcome.
Hello, council members. I'm speaking in support of the Frogtown Neighborhood Plan. I'm the artist who wrote and illustrated it. And I wanted to take note that all the speech bubbles, for the most part, within the plan are sound bites taken directly from community members. So it's verbatim what they said they wanted to see within their community. So I thought that was important to note.
That's great. Before you sit down, can you please introduce yourself so we...
Oh, my name is Michael Batson. Yeah, and I grew up in Frogtown.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Ms. Prince.
And I just want to recognize Michael as a constituent of my ward, and thank you for your beautiful work. I'm just amazed by it, so thank you.
Jane.
Oh, and I'm going to have to do this twice. When folks testify tonight, if they could just share their name and also where they live, and when you're done testifying, if you could sign in at one of the ledgers on either side of the podium, then we have a public record of who was here tonight. If we ever need to follow up or know who it was that spoke to us about the graphic comp plan. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anyone else here to speak in support? All right, Mr. Tom moves to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails. And Mr. Tom, move approval? All right, and Mr. Tom moves approval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted. Item number 71, Resolution Public Hearing 19-381, approving the plat for the West Side Flats Phase 3. And this public hearing is going to be continued to December 18th.
Is there anyone here to speak on this item tonight? All right, we just needed to make sure it was noticed incorrectly, so we will hold the formal public hearing on December 18th. But if anyone is here, you can speak tonight. All right, the matter will be laid over till continue to December 18th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is continued to December 18th. Item number 72, Resolution Public Hearing 19-390, authorizing an extension of the Lower Town Ballpark Project internal loan term.
All right, and we have a staff report on this item. Welcome.
Council President Brenmo and council members, Mike Solomon from City's Office of Financial Services. This is a technical item to tweak the term of our internal loan that we issued to fill the gap and finance the ballpark project in Lower Town.
Okay, are there questions for Mr. Solomon? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? Seeing none, Ms. Naker moves to close the public hearing and approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 73, Resolution Public Hearing 19-385, approving the Energy Park Utility Company Schedule A.
Ms. Nelson, is there a staff report on this one?
No, I don't believe so.
All right. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak to this item? All right, seeing none, Ms. Jalali moves to close the public hearing and approve. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is closed and the resolution is adopted. Item number 74, APC 19-4, to consider the appeal of St. Anthony Park Community Council to a decision of the Planning Commission denying the appeal and approving a conditionally approved site plan for improvement of a vacant lot for outdoor storage at 2495 Casota Avenue.
And this,
This is an item that's also going to be continued to January 8th.
but it was noticed.
It was noticed.
All right, so this item was noticed. If there's anyone here to speak to this item this evening, now would be that opportunity.
But they can also speak till January 8th, right? Okay.
Yep. And we're just calling for that public hearing because it was noticed, but it will be continued to January 8th. Oh, it is because of the AWAR.
The environmental review.
Environmental review. Okay. So that will be continued to January 8th, but it looks like nobody's here, so we will move the matter to continue the matter to January 8th. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The public hearing is continued to January 8th.
Okay. Okay. As I mentioned at 5:30, we have a few, I feel like we're a little bit clunky here because we have the second part of this truth and taxation hearing that has to start at 6 o'clock. And we've reached the point in our meeting where the two items on our agenda are truth in taxation, which has to begin at 6, and an item about the capital improvement budget for the Ford redevelopment project, which will take significantly longer than 15 minutes. So what we're going to do is go into recess until about 1 minute to 6, which is 14 minutes, and then we'll reconvene and we will take the truth and taxation public hearing. So we are in recess for 14 and a half minutes. please could join us at the table, we're going to get started. Why is it 88 minutes? Okay, 1, 2, 3. That's okay, we can get started. All right. The St. Paul City Council is back in order. Roll call.
Tolbert, Bucieri, Jelani Nelson, Naker, Prince, Tao, Council President Bren Moen. 6 present, 1 absent, being Councilmember Tolbert.
All right, so thanks for that slight delay. It is really energizing and exciting to have so many people and stakeholders who care so deeply about St. Paul in the house tonight. So thank you all for being here. At 6 o'clock right now, we are going to roll into our Truth in Taxation public hearing, which is a statutorily required hearing that gives folks an opportunity to respond to an estimated tax statement that looks an awful lot like a real tax statement that was sent to your homes about 3 weeks ago. This has been a really odd year for the city portion of that estimated tax bill because the council set the levy limit at 22.23, which is unusually and extraordinarily high, not knowing how the trash referendum would play out. At the time, we referred to it as a placeholder, a safety net, and the trash referendum did pass. And so just to be very clear with people who are here about the city portion of their tax bill, the current levy that is being reviewed and considered by the council has a basement of about 4.85% and a ceiling of 5.85%. So we're looking at a significantly lower levy limit for the city. So 2 things, I think, before we get started. One is a big driver of property tax increase is the assessed value of your home. If you are here because your property value increased a lot or more than you think it should have, Ramsey County is who assesses your property and determines what that property value is. And there are representatives from Ramsey County out in the hall that you can talk to, and they're the proper folks to talk to about an increase in your property value. So just so that you talk to the right people if that is what's driving your comments here tonight. Second of all, our finance team is also in the hall, and they're using a tool called the Tax Estimator, which you can find on your phone or on your computer at stpaul.gov/tax estimator. And that is a tool that allows you to look at what your city portion of your tax would be if the 4.85 levy were passed as opposed to the 22.23, which was on the estimated tax statement. So if you are curious to know what it will more than likely look like, check out that stpaul.gov/tax estimator. You will need to know what your estimated market value is for your home. You can look it up online as well. Or if you want someone to do it for you, our finance team is out in the hall right now and can help you take a look at that. So moving on, we have at Truth in Taxation, our practice is to ask our commenters to keep their remarks to 2 minutes or less. We have, I think, somewhere around 45 people who have signed up to speak tonight, which is 90 minutes if everybody takes the full 2 minutes. That's not including transition time. It's a lot of time to hear comments, so if you don't have 2 minutes, you don't have to speak for 2 minutes. If a person before you did a really great job of making your point for you, you can bail. Or you can say, I agreed with what that person said, and leave it at that. If you are speaking on behalf of a group, we invite you to have your group stand up and just show that you're here in force, but maybe not all 82 people need to come up and repeat the same thing. And I think we get the impact when I'm seeing people with similar buttons, stickers, and showing that you're here on a shared value. So we appreciate that very much. So up to 2 minutes a person, and my job is going to be to keep people on task for that out of respect for the folks listening in the room and people who are number 44 and number 45, because it's great when you're number 1 and 2 and even 10, but 44 can get a little long. And after we're done with Truth in Taxation, we still are going to hear about the Ford plan tonight. So we're going to keep this moving along. So with all that information, when you testify, please state your name into the microphones. You don't need to adjust them. They'll pick up your voice just fine if you're really tall, if you're a little on the shorter side, if you're in a wheelchair, the adjustments will be made by our sound folks. Please tell us your name, tell us where you live, and then when you're done, sign in at the registers or at one of the ledgers on the side for the public record, and that will ask for your address and more formal information. So, again, people have been given numbers. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Thank you, Susan. I see you there. I see you. We're going to start out by getting a little context, right? All right, so Susan Earle from our Office of Financial Services is going to start out and share where we're at with the budget today.
Yes. Thank you, Council President Brenmo, council members. To your point of interest of time, I will go through pretty quickly. A lot of this is budget context that we've covered so far during budget hearings, and this hearing is really focused on the property tax portion of the budget and the tax statements, like you said, that folks have. So I'll provide a little bit of context of what the proposed budget is, a little more about the changes in the levy and sort of the unusual year we've had, and then open to any questions before testimony. So this is what I basically just said, well, what I'll head through. Our 2020 budget overview, wanted to just briefly remind folks, this is where our budget is, 2019 versus 2020 proposed. Overall, it's a 1.6% growth. That's across all funds. The general fund growth in what Mayor Carter proposed is 3.8%. That's where the levy dollars are mainly used. Also, our debt fund has levy dollars included in the financing sources for our debt funds. All of the proposed information I have is based on Mayor Carter's original 4.85% levy increase. I have a little bit on the supplemental budget as well, but just as you're looking at that, that's the context for these numbers. As a quick reminder, Mayor Carter's budget included increases for things like streets, sideways, and bikeways, children and families, and workforce and business. I won't go into detail unless there's anything folks would like me to highlight. In terms of reductions and efficiencies, Mayor Carter's budget also included a public safety reduction of about $1 million spread between the police and the fire department, and $3.5 million in reductions for other city departments. In broad strokes, our biggest cost in our general fund, which is our levy-supported fund, is the salaries and fringes of staff that work in the city. That accounts for about 80% of our budget. And the two departments that make up the biggest portion of that, or the three departments, are the public safety departments, and that makes up over half of our general fund budget. Our revenue, local government aid and property taxes are our biggest sources of revenues. Here you can see property taxes make up about 43% of our general fund budget. And just a little more context on LGA. LGA is the state aid that we get, and there's a gap between what we get and what the state formula would say, which impacts the amount of reliance that the city has on property taxes and the need to use property taxes as a financing source for a city budget.
And I'll just interrupt you and say that LGA stands for Local Government Aid, and it is it comes from the state of Minnesota, and it has been significantly underfunded in terms of what's coming to the cities across the state, and you push through that. But I think if we're being honest, that is one of the biggest challenges that we're facing in our budget.
Council President Brenmo, yes. I can go back for one more second. The gap that you're seeing is about just under $40 million for 2020, and that is a real significant pressure on our budget. Costs continue to grow every year. This funding source is really critical, but it hasn't grown, and certainly hasn't kept pace with inflation or what the state formula would say that St. Paul needs from that program, the local government aid program, to provide services for residents. So it's a point well taken. The supplemental public safety budget, so this is where the 4.85 versus the 5.85 levy increase. This is Mayor Carter's proposal for supplemental public safety investments. He was before the council a couple weeks ago, and we discussed these at the council org meeting this morning. So I won't read the whole slide off again, but this is where the difference between the 4.85 to the 5.85 levy increase comes in. It's to fund these proposals, and the financing source is an additional 1% levy increase for 2020.
And it says 2.9 million, but a significant portion of those programs are funded by non-city funds, by grants or other programs.
Correct. Council President Brenmo, that's correct. So getting to property taxes and fees. So the update, as you alluded to, but wanted to make sure folks were aware, the reason that we have this max levy that was set so high is we have to set it by September 30th. And because, as you mentioned, the result of the trash ordinance wasn't known at that time, the city council and the mayor decided that setting a maximum levy to potentially account for financing the trash program with property taxes instead of user fees was the way that we needed to set our max levy at that time. So we added $27.1 million to the proposal that Mayor Carter made. The maximum tax levy is not the final tax levy, but it is the tax levy, the levy that's used to calculate all the statements that folks receive. And so that's why that very high number is included, even though subsequently the referendum has we know the outcome and that the trash program won't need to be funded on the property tax levy. So the mayor's proposed was 4.85. The supplemental request adds another 1% to get to 5.85 of an increase over 2019. And as you mentioned, I have staff in the hall. We're happy to answer questions. The property tax estimator will get you really close, not knowing the final outcome of council decisions, but it will certainly be closer to what is on the tax estimator versus what is on property tax statements, given that the property tax statements included that extraordinary safety net levy. So real quick, this is the breakdown of our levy. This is the mayor's proposed property tax levy that everyone has seen and that we've been discussing. And then the next slide just highlights the difference. The general fund line is increased by about $1.56 million. That's the additional 1%. All other levies for debt service, the library, and the Port Authority are unchanged under Mayor Carter's supplemental public safety budget. So to provide a little context to what that means for a typical home, we every year look at what the median value home is valued at and what the changes to property taxes and other fees will do to that median valued home. Obviously, the home values vary widely. So this is just to get a sense of a year over year, what are we seeing and what's the impact on a median value home for the property taxes that are proposed. So this is the total just city tax bill for our median valued home. Under the 4.85% increase proposal would be $886 for 2020. Mayor Carter's proposal would add another $11 to that, so a 1% increase would translate to an $11 increase for this home. The tax statement that this home in theory would have received would have shown over $1,000, so you can get a sense of how widely varied it is between what the sort of what the range, as you mentioned, the ceiling and the floor for what council is currently considering and what was included on tax statements.
And noting that the median value in home from 19 to 20 increased by almost $15,000.
It did, yes, correct.
Can I just pause you for a second? So I want to make sure that people who need to sit can sit. We're a little overflowed. So if there's any way for folks to kind of squish into the middle and make some room, there's more seating over here, and you can walk around this way. Sometimes people want to stand, and that's cool, but I don't want you to stand if you can't or stand if you don't want to. Yeah.
It's very difficult to hear, and she speaks very fast.
Okay, so we need more. We need more mic on Miss Earl, and she needs to talk a little slower.
And I'll slow down.
Thank you. Thanks for that. And you can squish in a little bit. There is some room over here as well. All right. Okay. Just want to make sure if you need to sit that you can sit. Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
Thank you, Council President Brenmone. And I apologize if folks have questions because I've gone quickly to keep us moving along. I'll be around, so happy to answer questions that folks have. This slide looks at the difference from year over year from the 2019 estimated to 2020 proposed and then 2020 proposed with the supplemental proposal of not only property tax, the changes in the median valued home property tax, but also all of the other fees that the city charges and all the other changes that are proposed in the budget. So we include this as just general context. We know that the levy isn't the levy decisions aren't made in a vacuum. There are other components of the city budget that are funded by residents and other ratepayers. And so this slide looks at what the total change is from 2019 to 2020 proposed. At that time, we estimated about an $80 increase overall impact on a median valued home across all of the fees and programs that are included on the slide. Again, the supplemental public safety proposal, 1% adds about $11. So that total, there are no other changes to any of the other rates for what the mayor is proposing. And then the final bit of context that I would include is St. Paul's one portion of, the city of St. Paul is one portion of St. Paul residents' overall tax bill. So we have Ramsey County, St. Paul Public Schools, and then other miscellaneous taxing districts also make up what a resident will see as their total tax bill. And the city is right under, just under 30% of this median valued home's property tax bill that they would expect to see in 2020. There's some property tax resources. Councilperson Brenmo, you already mentioned our property tax estimator. There's links to look up your property value, so you can use that as hopefully as seamlessly as possible. We have our budget information posted online, and we also have an open budget portal where you can download and manipulate and look into a lot of the details in the budget. So if the static PDF that we have of our budget book isn't answering the question that you're looking for, the open budget portal is another way to get at that data and to find some of the details that we have in all of our, both our capital and our operating budgets.
Great.
So with that, if there are questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Are there questions for Ms. Earl? Okay. So another little update. We do have an overflow room open now. It's 3:30. It's just over here. There's three large TV screens in there and lots of seating. I heard a rumor there's one person in there. So there's room. And so if you even after a little while, if you'd like to go sit down, there's 3:30 is just out this door and to the left, and it's marked well. So there is that option for folks as well. Okay, and doesn't look like there's questions for you. We did get a big presentation from you this morning, so I think the council's kind of tapped out on our questions for you now. Ms. Houston.
Thank you.
Council President Brenmo, council members, I'm happy to be here tonight. My name is Holly Houston. I am the council's chief budget officer. And I am here to briefly review the council budget process and the priorities that you've identified this year in the budget. Before I start, I'd just like to say thank you to Councilmember Brenmo for her leadership throughout this year-long process. This year, we were able to create a budget process video. We updated our website and improved it and organized our first community event to hear feedback early in the council phase of the budget from community members. I'd also like to thank the Office of Financial Services, John McCarthy and Susan Earle and the budget team. They have worked hard all the last 4 months to supply the council with accurate, complete information that has aided in your evaluation of the budget, as well as all the department directors and staff that have worked hard to present and prepare materials for your review. So as I mentioned, I briefly discussed the budget process, the council budget priorities, and what the council's 2020 budget is looking like today. So this is a typical process map. I'm going to spend just a few extra minutes on this because, as we have mentioned a few times, this is an atypical year. So starting in January, the council identifies priorities and holds organizational committee meetings to help clearly define budget priorities and share them with the mayor before he proposes his budget. The mayor recommends a budget in August, and the council spends the next 4 months meeting with departments to understand the budget and service impacts of that proposal. This year, the council engaged with the community through listening sessions, the budget meetings that are open to the public and televised, and encourage people to give feedback online, through email or through the phone. This has helped the council guide any revisions that they may want to make to the budget. As we mentioned, there was in August, there was the Supreme Court order to put the organized trash collection on the ballot. Now that we know that decision, the council has, since November 5th, the trash ordinance passed, which eliminated paying for organized trash collections, with property taxes, which is allowing the council flexibility to decrease the levy. 2 weeks ago, as mentioned, Mayor Carter recommended a supplemental budget increase of 1%. to increase public safety investments. This year's process has been atypical. The recommended and supplemental budget included many council priorities. The council has identified a need for additional minimum wage support and is continuing to discuss budget changes before adopting the budget next week. Now I'm going to just take a few steps backwards and begin and just quickly go over all the work that's been done this year to get us to this point today. So as I mentioned, this year, in the beginning of the year, the council sits down and identifies priorities. This year, a work plan was created and identified 5 key priorities. The council created working groups to identify ways to support and move these priorities forward. The work plan focused on community first public safety, pedestrian safety, sales tax area revitalization budget strategy, housing, and a performance audit. In addition to the working groups, the work plan also included a schedule of organizational committee meetings to evaluate program outcomes, effectiveness, and efficiencies to ensure quality services are being delivered with funding sources in the budget. This year, the council prioritized several key areas. They're listed here, such as minimizing the budget increase, continuing infrastructure investments, pedestrian safety, housing trust fund, minimum wage resources, public safety investments, youth investments, and preserving the business district investments. As I mentioned earlier, last year the council heard from the community that public comment should be heard earlier to ensure that community preferences are considered before the final budget adoption. On August 28th this year, the council hosted a community listening session. Over 150 people attended, sharing over 200 ideas on the recommended budget. We heard differing opinions and preferences related to public safety, infrastructure, community engagement, sustainability and climate action, and housing. After the community event and some of the initial general fund presentations, the council prioritized several areas where it believed more information, input, and debate may be needed. Some of the priorities identified by various council members included a focus on public safety investment, such as staffing, the police academy, community youth ambassadors, violence intervention, such as Cure Violence program, mental health and community wellness initiatives, other community first public safety ideas. Additionally, the council is considering more resources to support the minimum wage rollout and to preserve the downtown business district. Finally, what is in the 2020 council budget right now? I'll just highlight a few key priority investments. Possible levy increase of 5.85%. There's funding for Fire Station 7, down payment assistance program for housing, a minimum wage support, community ambassadors, healing streets and cure violence, library materials. The library material budget will be at a 4-year high, and free rec check. So that brings us here today. We are here at the Truth in Taxation public hearing, and next week will be the final budget adoption. Thank you.
Great. Are there questions for Ms. Houston? And thank you so much for wrangling all of this information, especially in this very challenging and complicated budget year. We really appreciate your leadership and helping us bring some of these desires to reality. We really heard last year at Truth in Taxation that by the time December rolls around, a lot of the budget is pretty much set and established, and I think that's true. So by holding hearings more early in the process, we were able to get feedback early and incorporate those into our thoughts as we made these plans. So you and Ms. Maloney and our council team really helped to make that happen. So thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. I do want to also remind people that we do have the Truth in Taxation hearing. It isn't like sometimes when we have an ordinance, we have a public hearing and then it's tied to a final vote. We vote on the budget next week, not today, so we will get input today on the for Truth in Taxation, but we won't be voting today. So if you're expecting a big vote just want to manage your expectations on that. We'll close the public hearing and then we'll move on to the next agenda item. So just in preparation for that, what is to come. Okay, so thank you, Holly. Thank you, Ms. Houston, Ms. Earl, and teams. We are now going to start our Truth in Taxation hearing. So can I get people who are number 1 through 10 to line up? And remember, I understand now we have 50 people who have numbers assigned to them. 100 minutes, assuming that there's no time in between people talking. So help us, help you keep this on track. All right, let's start with number 1. And remember to introduce yourself, give us your name, let us know where you live, and then when you're done, if you could sign in. Thank you so much for being here. You're number 1.
I know, it scares me a bit. I'm Jean Comstock. I live in beautiful Dayton's Bluff in wonderful Ward 7, and I'm here today as a member of St. Paul 350. I come on short notice, so I'm only going to talk about 2 things briefly. The first is simply my disappointment. As I understand it, funding was not approved for a staff person for the Climate Resilience Advisory Board. If perhaps Mr. Russ Stark comes to you with other ideas to how to get the advisory board going, I hope you will support and help him to do that. The second thing is, I believe there's been some talk of reducing funding for the electric charging hubs, and we would really like to encourage you to keep all of that funding in there. Obviously, we are in the middle of a climate crisis, and we need to start working now. I have heard that by lessening that money, it might delay the project by 6 to 12 months. And quite honestly, we do not have time to wait a year before we start pushing this. One of the things that holds people back from buying electric vehicles is not having the confidence that they're going to be able to charge where they need to. And this would go a long ways in helping them do that. And I like to hope that our Mayor Carter, will support this too, since I got the news today that he is now on the Climate Mayors Steering Committee. One of 23 mayors, I think, in the United States. So hope he's with this. It's time for St. Paul to lead on this. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll go straight to the second person. I did fail to mention, on December 18th, we have scheduled the public hearing on our climate action plan, which we will be voting on that date. So folks who are here, December 18th, we'll see you again. Okay. All right. Welcome.
Thank you, President Friend Moen, and council members. I am Myrna Nelson, and I'm co-chair of the Isaiah St. Paul Affordable Housing Task Group. I am passionate about the need for all people in the city of St. Paul to have an affordable and stable home. I see the face of homelessness as I move about our city, and this is not acceptable. Our congregation has been a host to Project Home for the past several years. There I see the face of homelessness in the parents and the children who sleep at our church, waiting for a place to call home. Congregations and the many other housing advocates cannot solve this problem without the support of various governmental bodies. Therefore, thank you for creating the $10 million Housing Trust Fund. I deeply appreciate the $3 million 5-year plan that provides $300 per month rental subsidy for qualifying families with children in the 7 St. Paul public schools. I also appreciate the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that provides for down payment assistance for middle-income families who need this assistance in buying homes, for the $40,000 in no-interest loans for families earning no more than 60% of AMI, and thank you for the HRA's passage of the $900,000 in federal low-income housing tax credits for construction of affordable housing by Wellington Management, J.B. Vang, and the Neighborhood Development Alliance. Thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Bremoen and council members. I'm Rich Nymone from Ward 6. I'm also a member of the Isaiah St. Paul Housing Task Force. I urge the council to aggressively continue to advance fair housing through the following efforts. Focus efforts on homeless prevention, especially for families earning at or below 30% AMI. Pass enforcement and compliance of housing regulations. Pass and enforce tenant protections for renters, including limitations on deposits. and limits on lookbacks for certain kinds of offenses on rental history. Promote education and engagement of housing rights in our community. Promote the missing middle listed in the 2040 Comprehensive Plan zoning policies, including by abolishing single-family homes only zoning throughout the city. Move beyond financially supporting community land trusts and establish a municipal land trust. Revisit parking minimums, allow high-density building along transit corridors, and root out discrimination of all kinds. I ask that the budget of the City of St. Paul address and solve the many issues that ultimately will prevent the face of homelessness from appearing in our beloved city. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I'm Elaine Tyrone, and I've been a property taxpayer in St. Paul for 38 years. And I'm here also to support, speak on behalf of the Minnesota Interfaith Coalition for Affordable Housing, MICA. There are a number of us here who will be speaking. But I particularly want to remind you of a listening session you had on May 1st. The last time I was in this room, a succession of students who were homeless in the St. Paul schools stood right here and told their stories. And they talked about how they got 3 hours of sleep a night and how they were having to live. And there are 2,200 homeless students in the St. Paul schools every year. And these are people who are probably, the people we heard from were single mothers and with many children. So let me just move back from saying affordable housing and affordable units and just remind you when you're making your decisions that a 1-bedroom is not big enough for a family of 3 or 4. You need a 3-bedroom affordable unit for a mom who's probably at 20% of median income. And so we need to do a lot of work. I thank you very much for making housing a priority. I think it's a huge issue. But just say, as a property taxpayer, I want to see all of my property taxes going to this issue. Thank you.
President Bremon, council members, my name is Bill Johnston, and I am here also, as Elaine is, the representative of MICA. My family and I have lived in, I just thought I don't know our ward number, 4? St. Anthony Park. For 30 years. I want to first of all assert that what you're putting together as a budget is really a moral document. It's a document where we say this is where we put our money where our mouth is. I was at the same listening session that Elaine was at on May 1st. And what was interesting to me was that every council person who was there got up at the end of the session, and as you may remember, you talked to these students, these single moms and the young men, and said, this cannot be allowed to continue, and I promise we're going to do something about this. And if you don't remember making that promise, there is a video on the city's website where you can see what the promise was that you made. Micah, we have a thought on that we hope will help you fulfill the promise that you made that day. And it is to attach the concept of inclusionary zoning to any new developments that are supported with public money or other resources, such as land donations or parking or other infrastructure changes. And inclusionary zoning simply means that a development, and we would propose a development of 8 or more units, would include at least 20% of those units as affordable. And affordable...
You have about 8 seconds.
I see the yellow light.
Okay.
At the 20% level, I applaud Ryan for having 20% of the units at the Ford plant affordable. They've gone down to 30%. To really solve the problem that the kids told us about that day, we need to go down to 20%. Thank you.
Please be sure to sign in, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Council President Brenmon and City Council members. My name is Arlene Datu, and I live in Ward 2 on Lexington and Lincoln, and I'm a member of St. Thomas More Catholic Community, and I'm also a leader in Isaiah. So it was just little more than a year ago in July that ICE came to Ramsey County Courthouse and City Hall in this very building and violently and aggressively took away Carlos Urrutia to deport him. Carlos is the father of 3 minor children and has been organizing with Isaiah for the last 7 years on immigrant rights advocacy. He has fought long and hard to protect others from deportation and he's also advocated for driver's licenses for immigrants, undocumented persons in this state. So we are in a time where we need to make sure our immigrant brothers and sisters are protected from deportation. So that is why we fought for an immigrant legal defense fund last year, so those who are facing deportation can have the legal assistance needed to fight their case. And that's why I'm here to commend the City Council for including $100,000 this year in the budget for support of immigrants, with $50,000 of that money going toward the legal defense fund. This is St. Paul acting on its reputation as the most livable city in Minnesota, and it creates communities that are safe for all residents, especially people of color and immigrants. So thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Sharon Schrantz. I'm a member of Isaiah, and I live at 1291 Sargent in St. Paul between Syndicate and Hamlin. And I'm representing Isaiah, as I said, and I came to talk and discuss the Community First public safety program that our mayor has suggested. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota, and in the summertime we had a public park system, many of them throughout the town, that were safety zones for kids. You could learn to play chess, you could knit a pot holder, you could paint a plaster of Paris Mickey Mouse, you could be in an inter-city league. It was a safe place for kids to be. And we started going to these places when we were very young, like first and second and third grade through junior high school. So I think that there are other opportunities to create public safety in our neighborhoods other than increasing policing. It's a long-term project, I know that. But we have a vision of St. Paul that honors people's dignity, every citizen's dignity, and focuses proactively on getting to the cause of crime and poverty, rather than constantly reacting to them. We believe that our budget should reflect this and work to invest in all of our communities. We have an incredible opportunity now to make investments that will provide public safety, foster community wellness, and address the root causes of crime rather than just the crime itself. Through the supplementary budget, we can offer alternatives to incarceration, reentry programs that stop over-policing and criminalization. We have a huge opportunity this year to invest in programs like career readiness. Now is the time to invest in programs like community ambassadors initiatives, where we can have more community leaders in our neighborhoods who can de-escalate situations before the police need to be called.
I do need to tell you that you're over time.
Okay, thank you very
Sorry,
much.
thank you so much. I hate cutting people off, but like I said, I'm thinking about number 44. All right, thank you so much. Welcome.
Thank you, President Mullen and council members. My name is Ahmed Anshur. I live in St. Paul. I live in Ward 4, and my congregation, Al-Ahsan Islamic Center, is in Ward 1. Everyone deserves the right to have a place to live that's affordable, safe, and dignified. However, there is a huge affordable crisis in our affordable housing crisis in our city that needs and requires bold action. I am also grateful that the City Council passed initiatives through Affordable Housing Trust Fund that provides down payment assistance to the middle class income families who need assistance in buying homes. I also support the $40,000 in no interest loans for families earning no more than 60% of area median income. However, there is a lot of work to do to create inclusivity for my community. The Muslim community that I am a part of have a problem in buying houses because of lack of financial inclusivity. We Muslims are required to do financial transactions in terms of our faith. Therefore, there is no Islamic financing platforms or mechanisms or products that can help our people, and our people will remain renters if we don't create such kind of vehicles. Therefore, a huge barrier for my community is the lack of Islamic financing that we need to ensure that more people in my community can own a home in a way that honors their faith. I look forward to working with the City Council and the Mayor to ensure that there is some investment made to create this kind of financing support next year in the budget. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Gay Sorensen. I'm a leader with Isaiah. I can remember being in this room when Earn Sick and Save Time was passed over 2 years ago. There were lots of us here cheering loudly. But now we know that many employers are ignoring the ordinance and making money by not giving their employees this much needed benefit. Paid sick time is so important for low-wage workers like my son, who has gone back to work too soon when he's sick, not wanting to lose pay, and then got sicker. He still doesn't get paid sick days and is afraid to report his St. Paul employer. How can we get these employers to follow the law? It's clear that the city needs to be proactive on Earn Sick and Save Time and the $15 minimum wage. We need more than one employee taking care of the complaints and also going out to speak to and check on how businesses are doing. We need to prioritize enforcement of this ordinance for our families, friends, and community. Thank you.
Thank you. Be sure to sign in.
Hi, Council. Thanks for letting me speak.
Before you get started, I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. Can people, numbers 11, people with the numbers 11 through 20 start lining up? Thank you. All right.
Hi, Council. My name is Dan Humes. I'm a Miriam Park resident, Ward 4. There's an old saying that time is money, and I know this is a budget meeting. I'm going to ask you to shift gears and think about time. My concern is about climate change. There's a pretty exhaustive initiative that's publicized. I would ask you to look at it. I'm not sure that we have the amount of time that this initiative is laying out. 2030 for 50% reduction, 2050 for a full reduction in carbon. I don't think we have that kind of time. Thank you.
Thank you. And so you're 11?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Council President Brenda Moen and council members. My name is Stephanie Stasel. I live in Ward 2 on the west side, and I am the chair of St. Paul Isaiah, and I also am a retired speech pathologist for St. Paul Public Schools. So the issues around housing and public safety are very dear to me from my career with working with young children. I just want to support what our other leader, Sharon Schrantz, said about the public safety and Mayor Carter's proposal for more holistic treatment of public safety rather than policing. So I just want to ditto those remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
My name is Tom Baxter. I'm a resident of McAllister Groveland, and it's the common wisdom of Minnesotans that we build things to last and we take care of them so that they do. I'm honored to be able to speak to you who are the holders of the public trust and the stewards of this city. to express my alarm about the condition of our public infrastructure. I find that the crumbling curbs and dilapidated streets are of great concern to me and to all of my neighbors and to everyone who I know who visits the city of St. Paul. I have been concerned recently about the quality of advice that you are receiving from your staff. The Aid Mill controversy has brought to light that members of your staff feel that it is in the public interest to allow this decline to continue because it will encourage public transportation, or that we should be able to rely upon studies in the case of Aid Mill that are 20 to 30 years old, when we all know that in fact the realities of that situation have changed substantially. So I'm here to stress that I understand your need to raise funds, and there are limits in that, but I want to make sure that you do not miss a historic opportunity. The current interest rate on municipal bonds of 30 years for a city that has a AAA rating is 2.08%. And at that rate, you could take your $20 million pothole budget and leverage that into $960 million for infrastructure for 30 years. You should have the confidence to do this because you have 38,000 new units of housing coming on in Ford Parkway, and you have the improved economic development opportunities of a city with a stable infrastructure. And your risk is losing your AAA bond rating because you do not take timely action when you have historic finance opportunities.
Thank you.
Hello, Councilmember Bradbone and council members. My name is Oshan Orr, and I'm from 440 Hall, just up the hill. I attended one of the three mayors' meetings, and last night I was at a Westco meeting, and I guess that's where I got this. And in those meetings, I realized the extent of which the community was coming forward to talk about the issues of violence in our community. And so I really support community engagement and more funding for the social programs underlying some of the issues. I also think that you've got to double or triple your efforts in the legislative session coming up. Get your lobbyists really going strong on the LGA point, because we need more money, and we're being taken advantage of not only by the rest of the state, but by the suburbs. Now living on the west side, I realize I've got to go to West St. Paul to buy many of my things. I used to live in Midway area. Most of my shopping was done in St. Paul. Now it all goes to West St. Paul. They get the taxes, they get the money. And so we need to do something in the Met Council as well to get a more equitable situation. Thank you.
Thank you. He signed it.
Good evening. My name is Michaeline Kolstock, and I'm here to talk about property taxes. I own a company called Spence Specialties, LLC. We provide sober housing to women and their children. I currently own 5 single-family homes in the St. Paul area, mostly on the east side, and I recently bought a commercial office building earlier this year. In these homes, I house women and their children who wouldn't otherwise have a place to live and would be in shelter. I hear that affordable housing is a priority of the city of St. Paul. However, at my homes since 2016, my property taxes have increased by $10,000 a year annually. That makes it difficult for me to provide affordable housing to my women and their children. $10,000 per year is enough for me to buy an entire another house with a complete mortgage. Rather, I'm paying more in taxes each year. Eventually, this will cause me to close my program doors if these increases don't stop. I house 32 women and usually 20 children in each of these homes. I ask you, if I have to leave and close my program, where will these women and their children go? Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Tim Colstock, and I live on the east side down in the Highwood area. And I feel like I might be at the wrong meeting. I came here to complain about taxes. Mine were proposed to go up 14%. I've seen other people's with 17 and 20%. And it just seems like there must be a lot of ways to have increases. These increases are out of control. My income is 0% increase. I'm on fixed income, so taxes go up $500-600. That's just that much harder on my family. I think you should have a cap on it, and maybe I don't know what the increase was. I thought I heard something about 4.8. I was going to say 5% a year because I see 14, 15, 17% increases. Now I realize now since I got here that's supposed to be before that yes vote, so I understand that. But I also think the property value might be the wrong way to assess these taxes because everybody gets the same services. If you got $1 million house or a $150,000 house, everybody's getting the same services. Your value of your property, that's not really spendable money unless you sell your house. So, if you got an expensive house, you should pay higher taxes. Well, I'm not selling a house, so I don't have more money. Maybe after I die. And as far as making improvements on property, it's almost like it's counterproductive. Make the house look better, taxes go up. Value goes up, taxes go up. I drive around the city, I look at houses and neighborhoods. I see houses that haven't had a thing done to them in years. The roofs are falling apart, siding, paint.
Your time's up, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I do want to encourage you, sir, before you leave, as we mentioned earlier, that we do have staff from the Office of Financial Services out there using that tax estimator, and maybe you can get a better picture of what your tax bill will look like.
Hello, Council President and councilors. My name is John Slade. In addition to living on the east side in Ward 7, I am also one of the organizers working with the Metropolitan Interfaith Council on Affordable Housing's East St. Paul chapter, which is growing, and we're super excited about that. We've got a number of people here. The two main issues that the Micah St. Paul chapter has identified are youth homelessness and fair housing issues. And one of the things that we've discovered in the youth homelessness issue, and we're not the only ones working on this, the Promise neighborhood used to support 50 families that was mostly in the Frogtown Rondo area. That funding went away. Homework Starts with Home is funding that's in there now, and it's supporting about 20 families. So there's a gap of about 30 families. It would be great if you can find the support for that. As far as fair housing is going, we are super excited that you've got a group of fair housing proposals coming before you. And we've also sent out, the St. Paul chapters sent out some. Two really big considerations. Informing renters of their rights in plain language is super important. There's a balance between the power of landlords and the power of renters, and renters need to be able to goose up on that. We're super glad to see that you're passing a renter screening or looking to pass a renter screening law that is going to take some of the onus off of having a bad criminal record or a bad eviction record. Because we know time and again that there's racial bias in both criminal histories and eviction records. Cura studies said that most of the evictions in Minneapolis were single moms on the north side. Inclusionary zoning, Bill spoke on that. We're very much in favor of continuing that. And we're very, very excited that you're going to be working on preventing non-just cause evictions. Those are some really great fair housing protections that we're glad at. We understand that fair housing testing, kind of the secret shopping, get a black person and white person with the same numbers and send them out and see what they get, wasn't included this year. We would love to see it next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Buenas noches.
Good evening.
Gracias por el tiempo que me dan. Mi nombre es María Vázquez, vivo en San Pablo, trabajo también en San Pablo.
Thank you for this time tonight. My name is Maria Vasquez. I work in St. Paul and I live in St. Paul.
Estoy como miembro activo del CETUL.
I'm an active member of CETUL.
Donde nos dedicamos a hacerle llegar el conocimiento de los derechos a los trabajadores.
And where we make sure that we know our rights as
que
workers.
Fue como a mí me ayudaron también en CETUL en el momento que tuve necesidad, porque algunos trabajadores son abusados, no les pagan su trabajo. Entonces en CETUL tenemos investigadores y yo me dediqué a colectar firmas en mi comunidad y todos estamos de acuerdo que necesitamos más dinero para que haya más presupuesto, para tener más investigadores y de esa manera tengamos más contratos comunitarios. Esa es nuestra necesidad en mi comunidad. Es poco, es una necesidad de muchos, tal vez de todos. Que tengan buenas noches. Gracias.
So, CETUL has been there for me to make sure that we know our rights. In our community, there's a lot of abuses that are going on, and we need to make sure that we have each other's backs. I've been a part of CETUL, and I know I've been out here collecting signatures from my neighbors, from my fellow community members, because we need more investigators. We also need more money in community contracts so that we can be educating ourselves and making sure that we know about our rights. And it's a need that we have. It might be small, might be big, but it is a need that we have. And thank you so much for taking the time to make sure that those things are in the budget.
Thank you.
Buenas tardes.
Good evening.
Mi nombre es Carlos. Vivo y trabajo en la ciudad de San Paul.
My name is Carlos, and I live and I work in the city of St. Paul.
Yo estoy a favor que pongan dinero no solo para más investigadores, sino también para contratos comunitarios. Si no fuera por CETUL, muchos de nosotros no supiéramos sobre nuestros derechos.
So I'm here because we not only need investigators for our rights, but we also need more money for community contracts, because if it wasn't for organizations like CETUL, we would not know about our rights most often.
Ni en el trabajo, ni en las leyes. Es importante para nosotros como trabajadores defendernos y aprender de los derechos y las leyes. Gracias.
Both in our workplaces and when it comes to our rights and the laws, we need to be knowing our rights, and we need to be able to exercise them, and we need to be able to defend them and stand up for them. And so it is very important for us as workers to be able to do that, and we need to have the backup and the support and the reinforcement of our laws to make sure that we can access our rights. Thank you.
Gracias. Buenas noches.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Good evening, Madam President, council members. My name is Matthews Hollinshead. I live in Highland Park within sight of the Ford site, but that's not what I'm talking about right now. I handed out my printed testimony. There's 4 points on it. I'm going to start with number 3 and 4 due to the time. Regarding the budget and transportation savings, many seniors, such as myself, are not in poverty, want to stay in St. Paul, but are on a modest fixed retirement income insufficient to afford the average $9,000 per year annual cost of a personally owned motor vehicle. St. Paul should plan accessible car sharing not just for those officially identified as needy, but for all. As property taxes continue to rise over time, this will permit current St. Paul taxpayers to stay. Now, point number 4 you might receive as a joke, but I actually mean it seriously. It regards revenue. In the absence of congestion pricing in St. Paul, I have a new idea to cover the recently reported $21.5 billion needed over 20 years for our streets and bridges. Tax motor vehicles as real property. After all, they are in essence structures occupied by residents as our houses, by employees and customers as our businesses. Whether moved or parked, they occupy land. Each of them, post-initial sale, is estimated to require and create 8 times its footprint in parking area in cities. They have various other costs, such as snow plowing and traffic signals, currently externalized partially or in whole to property taxes. Let's just recognize all these costs directly by taxing motor vehicles. You may see this as utopian, a joke, or legally impossible, but I'm serious. It's way past time the drivers and their personal vehicles reimburse directly their full cost to the city and relieve non-drivers of the unfair burden of sharing costs. The other 2 points are about Ide Mill Road, and they are budgetary, but since you have them in the printed version and I'm almost out of time, I'll let you read them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You really nailed that. 2 minutes on the nose. All right. I believe we have the last of this group, the 2 of you, and then what I'd like to do is get 21 through 25 up in the queue, and when we get to 25, we're just going to do a 2-minute stretch. We're going to stand up, we're going to twirl around, we're going to sit back down, but 2 minutes. So let's get 21 to 25 up in line, and then people can start managing their expectations for the 2-minute stretch. All right, come on up.
Good evening, and thanks for taking the time to listen to us. My name is Bob Hindle. I live on the east side. I want to speak to 2 issues. Number 1, the trash referendum, and number 2, snow plowing. Trash referendum I consider having been illegitimate for 2 reasons. Number 1, the city of St. Paul propagated a myth, namely that the city can mandate citizens to buy something. We saw this on a national level with Obamacare. It was made clear, even in the Supreme Court ruling, that the government cannot mandate cities to buy something, or citizens to buy something. This referendum was done on the assumption the city of St. Paul can force people to buy trash removal services from private corporations, emphasis corporations. That is not correct. That violates our constitutional rights, our freedom of speech, which allows us to spend our money as we choose. That's an American fundamental right. Secondly, the second error that the referendum was based on is that somehow the citizens of St. Paul had a contract with these corporations. We did not. We were not liable for the $27 million when Mayor Carter said before the referendum that we would be on the hook for $27 million if we voted no. That was a complete fabrication. As such, I would like to ask for this referendum to be redone with proper information so that citizens can vote correctly according to what is true, according to our Constitution, according to what are their actual rights. The second point I wanted to mention is snow plowing. You're asking for a tax increase in our area, like my property taxes, like the gentleman who spoke before, it's going up about 20%. And yet, I do not see the streets being plowed properly. I'm a cyclist. I go all around the area. Maplewood's plowed out. Forest Lake's plowed out. Stillwater's plowed out.
Sir.
St. Paul, okay, I'm going to just finish here. St. Paul is not plowed out. And the reason, there's a very simple reason for this, and this has gone on for years.
Sir, you're out of time.
Yeah, and I'm going to finish my sentence. The plows are not out on the streets when it's snowing. Every other city, it is happening.
That's 2 sentences.
All
We're
right,
done.
thank you.
All right, are you the person holding number 20? Great. What number do you have?
We called earlier and they said we could come and speak, so I was expecting to speak.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
we have a sequence of numbers, and if you need a number, we can certainly get you one.
Okay.
We're looking for what number do you have, Beth? Okay, so we're going to move on to Beth, but I think we can certainly get you a number.
Okay, is number 20 here?
We may have just heard from number 20. We may have just heard from number 20.
Mm-hmm. Beg your pardon?
We'll have you grab a number, please. Beth?
So where do I go to get a number then? I thought we had called to get this process fair and clear for everybody. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Council President Brenmo and council members. I'm Beth Heiser. I live in the Payne-Phelan Ward 6 district, and I am also the Chief Program Officer at NeighborWorks Home Partners. I'm actually commenting on the CIB portion of the budget, so this is a new topic for this particular hearing tonight. Our mission at NeighborWorks Home Partners is to empower individuals and communities by helping people buy, fix, and keep their homes. I'm here to advocate for the restoration of CIB funds for our home improvement lending to align with the recommendation with the community-based CIB committee recommendations. They allocated $175,000 per year per program for 3 ongoing programs. The CIB funds are critical for our foundation community lending products serving St. Paul homeowners. Our CIB funds are focused investment in key neighborhoods along the Green Line, North End, as well as a citywide program that's operated for more than 37 years. The need is great. Many homeowners are ineligible for traditional home improvement funding due to lack of home equity or atypical income. They're self-employed, artists, Uber drivers, all kinds of things. Displacement occurs when residents can't afford to repair their homes and have lived in generations and are now forced to sell because they can't keep up the maintenance. Our neighborhood-focused funds bring strategic resources focused on maintaining safe, affordable housing for the long term. We already have customers for 2020. For 2 of our 3 programs, we have requests outstanding right now for $225,000. So that's already quite a bit. So I guess I just wanted to skip ahead and say why we would like is we offer larger loans than some of the other community resources. We refund, recycle every dollar out into the community again so it can be spent more than once. And that we work closely with community members and city councils and other nonprofits to best coordinate and leverage with other available resources. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Santa Towns, and I am a Lower Town resident in Ward 2. And I'm here tonight to express my support for Mayor Carter's Community First Public Safety budget proposal. What we have in this proposal is the potential for breaking the harmful cycle of entangling Black and brown youth in a criminal justice system that often resorts to warehousing them and makes it nearly impossible for the vast majority of these youth to thrive in this country. This proposal has the potential to move us away from a system that has been influenced by policies of over-policing in Black and brown communities, and to rid some St. Paul residents of the mindset that the only solution to violence and crime is more police on our streets. We now have the opportunity to bring to St. Paul a data-driven and scientifically based community-first safety program that responds to violence and crime as a disease, which can effectively be prevented by using public health methods for combating epidemics. Why wouldn't we want to fund a public safety program modeled after the Cure Violence program approaches that understand violence in many communities as an epidemic disease and that have had tremendous impacts of reducing crime in numerous cities throughout the U.S. and in countries around the world? In reversing the disease of violence in St. Paul, here are but a few of the benefits of the Community First Public Safety Program. The budget proposes making investments that promote Community First Public Safety, foster community wellness, and address the root causes of crime. The budget proposes bold investments in the Community Ambassadors Initiative, whose leaders serve as interrupters of the disease of violence because they have credibility, trust, and access in our neighborhoods.
I'm just want to let you know that you're about 20 seconds over. You're about 20 seconds over.
Oh,
I keep thinking you're just
okay.
Okay.
You understand my point. I hope you will support this proposal.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry to have to cut you off. I really am. Welcome.
Thank you, Council President. My name is Adan Abdi, and I came from actually your ward, so I'm also a proud supporter of you. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. I want to thank you and your team for increasing the budget for parks and recreation. I am a member of a nonprofit called Minnesota Family and Youth Services. And I know our communities find that having a free access to schools and summer programs as the recreation centers in St. Paul matters a lot to parents and guardians, and also they feel safe knowing that children have a place to go. And there's also a lot of pictures actually recently that are going around in social media showing that there are people who just came around with big trucks taking people away, especially children. So some of my community are very much worried. They have been calling us around. So it is very, very important the parks and recreation areas are well maintained and taken care of. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, we have one more person who's going to make comments here before we have the promised 2-minute stretch. Welcome.
Hello, council members, and council president. My name is Maicy Lee. I am from Ward 6, and I am speaking here on behalf of the St. Paul Youth Commission, which are in the audience right there. After reading over the Community First Public Safety 2020 budget proposal, we would like to say that we support the vision that Mayor Carter has for the city of St. Paul. As youth who have benefited from enriching programs that St. Paul has to offer, we are proof that these programs work. Through Right Track, I have interned for the Ramsey County Courthouse in the criminal division, coached tennis to 5 to 10-year-olds with St. Paul Urban Tennis, and led youth programs such as Createch and 7-Eleven at the Rice Street Library. These programs have helped me gain leadership skills and public speaking skills. 10 of the 15 members of the St. Paul Youth Commission have also participated in and benefited from Right Track. Not only will investing in youth programming help keep youth off the streets, it will also help them gain skills that they can't necessarily gain in the classroom. With a platform such as St. Paul Youth Commission, we have been able to use our voices to share our experiences, and along with creating annual impact projects to engage youth all over the city. We are looking forward to 2020 and are confident that the Community First in Public Safety 2020 plan will indeed make St. Paul a city that would truly work for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Be sure to sign in, and thank you. And you said you're speaking on behalf of the Youth Commission, and could the Youth Commission stand up quick one more time for us? Thanks for being here. That's great. It's great to have you engaged in this process. We really appreciate it. All right. I promised I'm going to deliver. It's 7:12. We are going to take a quick 3 minutes. At 7:15, we will reconvene. Just a quick stand up and stretch so that we can keep listening. I'm just gonna say it. I'm like, oh, she's gonna eat it. All right, we're gonna get started again here.
Did you make them?
Whose is that?
No. Somebody lost sort of like awful.
All right, we're gonna get started. The St. Paul City Council is back in order. Roll call.
Tolbert, Missouri, Jalali Nelson, Naker, Prince, Tao, Council President Bren Moen, 6 present, 1 absent, being Councilmember Tolbert.
All right, it looks like somebody, all right, if we could get people's attention, we are officially underway. Sorry to interrupt your conversations, folks. We are called back to order. It appears that somebody, Trude, you're not supposed to show it right now. Somebody lost or has misplaced their purse. If you've misplaced like a mauve-colored pinkish purse, you could come let us know. Pick it up. We don't want you to be without your purse. All right, so we're going to roll again. We're going to be hearing from number 20 people with numbers 27. I think 26 was actually our last speaker. Can you tell? 27. So we're going to go with 27 to 30.
Thank you to...
The purse has been connected to the owner, so we're good. All right. All right.
Thank you to Council President Bren Moen and the council members for allowing me to speak. My name is Peter Meyer. I'm a 40-year resident of McAllister Groveland. As Mr. Tolbert in the room, he is my city council ward councilor. I want to address the public safety issue and begin by quoting a quote in the Highland Villager published Wednesday, December 4th, saying, "Gun violence is a public health crisis," the mayor said, and it calls for a new approach that goes beyond law enforcement. He said his strategy is focusing on strengthening families. And he says that I cannot pretend that a difference of 5 police officers can fundamentally transform public safety outcomes in a city of over 300,000 people. I have 2 issues with this. One is that the characterization of gun violence as a public health issue, gun violence is a criminal issue, and to recharacterize it as a public health issue is transforming it and misrepresenting it. The other thing is the use of evidence, and my council member, Mr. Tolbert, at a meeting prior to the election stated that there was evidence and other people have referenced that data. I want to remind the council that evidence in public health data and epidemiological data, there are 1 million medical science articles published a year. Many are for and many are against. If one is looking for real world evidence in terms of an effect on gun violence in a city, that I think one should look at both New York and Chicago. And the real world evidence in New York is that, as instituted by the policy of what's called stop and frisk, and in Chicago that doesn't exist, and the results in the real world are dramatic. The problem with gun violence in the mayor's policy is very kind to those who commit the crimes, but it is not kind to the community members. The persons that this council should be concerned about first and foremost are the safe and law-abiding citizens of this community, and your primary job is to protect them. It is not to protect the criminals. So the mayor's misguided direction with reducing the police force and putting money into other things is not protecting the citizens of this city, and it is your duty to change that budget.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Carrie Pomeroy, Ward 4. I'm here representing Root and Restore, a group that has a lot of folks here. And I've attended in the last few years a lot of meetings, a lot of public events about public safety, about policing. And what I hear, the message I hear over and over again is that when we invest in prevention, before people get hurt, we don't perpetuate that trauma. People aren't harmed if we invest in prevention first, rather than relying so heavily on punishment after the fact. So we believe that we do have to fund the village. Currently, police are 1/3 of our budget, and this is only feeding cycles of violence. We cannot arrest our way out of the problem. So we support the community safety budget supplement as a small but needed step in the right direction. But we support even more significant investment in jobs, housing, economic development, and community-led safety initiatives. We also support rehiring a public safety director and appointing a people's cabinet so that they can provide oversight, the voices of people who are directly impacted in the community. It's great to import models that have worked in other places, but for it to work here, we need people here to be involved in implementing it, and we need transparency about how that's carried out. So we are excited about the potential of more investment in restorative justice and other initiatives in this budget, but we think it's just a very small step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, what's up, y'all? How y'all doing? My name is Chantel Allen. We live in Ward 4. Some years ago, I recognized that we had a problem that was creeping up on us around public safety from within the school district. I could see that we had kids that were suffering from literacy problems and hopelessness, and they were heading in the wrong direction. I reached out to Todd Axtell at that time, and I asked him, hey, we need to invest more in our community and really into our youth and get them going in the right direction. There was nothing at that time. And so then we started to see this pimple come to a pop a few months ago in the spring and throughout the summer and into the fall, which has gotten everybody into an uprise. So I've kind of watched this all play out. Last year in the fall, about this time, I did my own personal sacrifice, and I stepped into a position and said I was going to run for office, sacrifice my own salary, $25,000 less to do this job, because I knew that I had to put myself in another position in order to rebuild our village, because there was some serious brokenness that was happening. I grew up in this community. I'm a born and raised fourth generation Rondo kid who was nurtured through the crack epidemic, through gangs and all of that, into an educator, an advocate, an activist, a leader in my community. And I believe that our city of St. Paul, the people that are in our communities, can do that with what we're dealing with right now. I want to fund the village. I am happy about the Community First initiative. I support it wholeheartedly. I love the ambassadors. I'm glad we're putting more money into that, because we have to go to where the youth are. We have to go to them and guide them in the right direction. I like the CURE model. I think that that's something really important, but we also need to look at ways to really fund the individuals that have been putting work in for a lot of years in this village. We have rec coaches that are volunteers that are putting in hundreds of hours, literally, to coach year-round sports for our kids, unfunded at all. They're fundraising left and right. How do we support that in the rec programs? How do we support other outreach people that are doing this work? Beep, beep, beep. Y'all got me, huh? All right, it's cool. It's cool. I'll be back. Peace.
It's great to hear from you. I just want to let people know that we are going to release the finance team in the Ramsey County Assessor's Office in about 10 minutes. So if you're here and you still haven't talked to them, I want to talk about the tax estimator or about your property value. We're going to let them go in about 10 minutes. Welcome.
Hi, good evening. I'm Tia Williams, co-director of Frogtown Neighborhood Association. We have been working on alternatives to displacement and gentrification. Conversations about gun violence intersect into those conversations. Community has trusted us with their stories in hopes that their ideas, their voices, and their experiences can be changed in spaces like these. With gun violence conversations, after speaking to city staff, we found that the trash referendum, if the trash referendum was passed, then there would be money for gun violence. The number of homicides this year was approximately 30, and the number of Black men killed by gun violence was approximately 27. And we're speaking of age groups between 26 and 30. and support what's going on with what people want to do with the youth, but also want to make sure that funding is going there as well. And to answer their mothers, we have been working with for years that their child's death is second to trash. It's unacceptable. Excuse me. When working with 88-year-old Native elders who have been displaced from their apartment buildings because of their rent going up $400 or families sleeping on light rails, we found that $5 million from the sale of the city-owned parking lot opened up possibilities. Frogtown Neighborhood Association calls for a co-op conversion fund, NOAA preservation fund for purchase and essential rehab of the Sears site housing and emerging Black business fund. 1% tax levy increase is not necessary, and why would you claim a crisis and an epidemic and still proceed to tax the very communities that are impacted? Thank you.
Thank you. Be sure to sign in. So if you're holding numbers between 30 and 40, if you could line up to speak. I know that Reverend Spence is 32. Why don't we have you start?
Two minutes, huh? I'm Reverend Spence. I'm with Community Action Partnership. I live in Ward 1, proud supporter of Diatal. I want to stand and say we are not satisfied. I keep hearing everybody say how satisfied they are with the plan. When you come to a community and say there's $3 million out of a $600 million budget, that scares me. 30 lives have been lost. Countless guns have been fired in our community. We need to stand up. I keep hearing people talk about the violence, the gun violence, the community activists. I often ask myself, what has people like myself done to people in this room that no matter what we try, we can't get funded? Without having to announce who I am, most people would have said Reverend Spence of the God Squad. I've been doing this work for 30 years in this community. I call myself semi-retired until the guns started shooting this year. And what I heard is, Reverend Spence, what should we do? I came out, I began to work. I thank Sheriff Fletcher for reaching out to us. I partnered with people like the NAACP, with MYA, with 8 to 18, who actually is opening a true center right now. I forwent that to be here just so that a voice could be heard, because there needs to be additional funding put into the grassroots organizations that have kept safety in this community. Even 30, it could have been worse. I will tell you that just a week ago, we made sure that one gun was taken off the street that was about to be used to hurt one of our neighbors. We need to fund. I applaud Councilmember Tao and President Berman and Sister Nelson for bringing us down. But the heartbreak was when we got there to find out there was only $3 million and was only going in one or two directions. And once again, community first meant not really community, but those. We love the ambassadors. They do a great job Thursday, Friday, Saturday from the hours they work. They do a great job. And we just need to better fund the community that is doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So if there's other people between numbers 30 and 40, it looks like there's just two. Come on
31.
Up. All right.
Hello, thank you for having us here this evening. My name is Victoria Caprioni. I live on the east side of St. Paul. And I initially came here with my husband to grouse about the tax situation, but you've eliminated some of the need for us to do that. But I am here to support the work of Micah and their housing efforts, and Isaiah and their efforts in that area also. But I think one area that the city is falling down on its face on in terms of housing people is accessory dwelling units. You've loosened it up a little bit, but you could fill a huge need for much more housing by doing subtle infill, by eliminating all of the hurdles that you've created for accessory dwelling units. It's usually done by the more well-heeled, and yet it could be a fabulous resource to get people into safe homes and get people building their own equity, building their own communities. And that's what we're really here about, is how do we build communities? Well, we provide good, solid homes for them as inexpensively as we can. We all want money from the city to do that. But if we have barriers that keep us from doing that, we can't do it, and money is a barrier. But also all of our restrictive elements also keep things from happening. And this is just one small area. Really want to see us look at what we're doing. Are we standing on our own hoses? Can we eliminate that so we can build stronger, healthier communities and get people housed and build a strong St. Paul? Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm number 38, so if there's anyone else that's before 38.
If we could, actually, it looks like the 30 to 40 group is thinned out. So we'll bring up anyone who's got the numbers in the 40s as well, and we'll continue to move through these. Okay.
Are you sure, Shaquana? Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name is Bahia. I am a Ward 2 resident over on the west side. I'm also part of Root and Restore. We're really honing in on what it means to fund the village and really honor the people who have lived experiences on the ground to really shape what community-led public safety looks like. The thing that I want to say is like a budget is a reflection of our values, and it's actually like, I would say, like naming what we love here in St. Paul, and I like deeply, deeply love St. Paul. And so I'm really invested in ensuring that we pass a budget and pass like the supplemental budget that is a step in the right direction to fund the village. I think that it isn't meeting the urgency of like where we're at, but is a step that will set us up for a strong budget year in 2020 to 2021. And if we invest more in people rather than in criminalization and punishment of poor and working class people, we can actually begin to see the type of community safety that is needed to protect and uplift young people who are like currently in a space of crisis. And so the thing that I just want to end with is like I think it's really important that we move in the right direction with the supplemental budget, and then we continue working together in community to come up with a really strong budget for 2021. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you signed in or not, but all right.
Hi, I'm President Bryn Moore in City Council. My name is Shaquana Jackson. I work at District 1 Community Council. Ward 7 is my area. And I'm also working with Micah around Fair Housing Act. So I do appreciate you all for the upcoming things that are being passed. But I'd like to shine a light on Section 8, which has not been talked about. Folks tend to forget about when you say affordable housing, Section 8 is a housing, public housing Section 8. So they too, which myself hold a voucher, is being forced to move out of St. Paul. In order for us to find anything, we're being redlined into rural areas. So I like to see the budget kind of, reflect or be put into the folks that, really need it as well. If you think about Section 8 housing, people of color, if you think about the crime, if folks are being pushed out and, things are happening that cause crime issues. So I think giving back to that, and I appreciate the just cause and everything, but also holding these landlords accountable, because for the fact that folks are just being pushed out and they have no help, housing is not able to help them. So folks are just pushed out, they're homeless, moved out into, rural areas, as I said. So I would like to see more money put into, more Section 8. So affordable, but also Section 8 housing into the city of St. Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, good evening. Thank you, Council Member President Brindham and the City Council. My name is Anika Bowie. Many of you may know me because I ran for City Council for Ward 1. And I am here and compelled to speak as a lifetime resident of Rondo. Also, I'm the Vice President for the Minneapolis NAACP. So I really see Twin Cities as an issue that we need to speak on. I also am the Smart Justice Advisory Board member for the ACLU, and then support here with Ruth Root and Restore. And I'm here to talk about the systems of transactional versus transformational. And I think here what we have is a moral document that's really showing that we want to invest into community, but I think we need to expand our scope of how we are addressing that. Transformational means you do the crime and you repair the damage. Transactional means you do the crime and you pay the time. And usually that doesn't always work out for us because what we're really paying is our safety at stake. And I believe public safety is more than locking up the bad guys. It's about how we can repair that damage. And I'm in support of this Community First public safety budget. I'm also not in alignment with many of the things that's been said on record around supporting spot shotters, other things that around like our policing, adding more police. I think as a candidate who has viable information and really had a connection to the residents, I've never heard anyone say we need more police. Everyone been saying we need more folks to be compensated in our community to work together and build relationships. Many of the organizations that we have seen in that document, I have actually built relationships with and have helped build, and have also helped make stay afloat. I want to see those things still stay in existence. We, people who have been here for all of our lives, have seen organizations come and go, and that our city have been influenced in who's staying in existence and who's not. So I'm going to wrap it up. The quote from Harriet Tubman is, "Freedom isn't given, it is won." And I think all that we're asking here today is that we want to win our freedom, and that's freedom from economic disenfranchisement. That's also political disenfranchisement, miseducation, police brutalities, and freedom from slumlords, and freedom from red line practicings that still exist today. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi. My name is Vivian Hekronya. I live in Ward 5 on Arlington, and I'm also the Isaiah organizer for St. Paul in the East Metro. And I led our efforts to ensure that we were in a position to have property taxes be spent on trash. And we worked so hard on that because we knew that we need to have a city that was moving in the direction of a multiracial democracy and a caring economy. And so I'm excited to hear from, like, say, Tool and Roots and Restore that, like, we should be heading in a direction where we are proactive and aggressive around making sure that, like, our city is a model for racial and economic justice. And so I'm super excited about a lot of the things that are in the budget around supporting immigrant rights and affordable housing and community first public safety. And I just really encourage that, like, we continue to be aggressive, and that we continue to make sure that communities across St. Paul have the opportunity not just to see that we've passed a budget, but to be active participants in seeing how that money is being implemented into next year. So I thank you for your efforts, and I do think we are moving in the right direction. I think being more bold and progressive and wading into the tension of change is going to be required, and that we shouldn't backtrack from wading into tension, because that's what's needed in these times. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Agustina Borrell, and I'm a resident of the West Side, and I'm here to speak to you as a mother. I'm a mother of 3, and what it brings me here is about the safety budget that is being proposed. And I'm here to talk for the ones that doesn't have a voice, and I'm talking about our children. Our children are being killed, and for some reason, it seems like we don't see it. We just bury them, and that's it. We forget about it. So I would like you to think about it, and please, we need this budget. We need money. Last night, we held a forum at the neighborhood house in the West Side. We have a big turnover, over, I will say, 70 people. Okay. Sometimes we need money for that. But it was people that was hungry for safety. Parents. The whole community was there. So please, give something to the community. Give us the opportunity. That's all I can ask you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Larry Ziske, and together with my son, we live on 5th Street East, the New Bridge Home Association near Harding. And I was glad to hear that a focal idea of the budget process this year was to try to minimize the increase. There have been several years of large increases. And as we've heard, there's many good ideas and projects and goals that the budget has to consider, but I think my concern is, yes, the overall tax burden, and to fund all of these things, we have to have a healthy, viable resident circumstance, and the reason I am with my son on the east side is because he couldn't afford it otherwise. And he would be here other than he works 3 different jobs. So the ideal of affordable housing is an important goal that has been recognized and supported by many tonight, and I believe that is also the case with the council and the mayor. But how this is achieved through taxation might be looked at very scrutinized. There have been, my request is to look at that, and even at this last day, late date in the budget process, I would ask departments and divisions to look at things to see if there can be a little trimming done yet. With my limited knowledge, I have a couple of thoughts or suggestions. One is putting the bike hiking path along Johnson Parkway to Phelan on hold, or at least trimming it or making it a little less thorough, if you will. The road block-offs to Johnson Parkway, I don't know if they're that critical. And I think, yes, that might be something that could wait till there is more surplus in the future. The other thought is the library budget. I don't know why the library needs increases every year in this digital age where so much information and data is readily available. I think that could be looked at. And I do support the idea of seeking other monetary sources, such as maybe taxes on alcohol, tobacco, and entertainment, including sports. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, council members and Madam President. I'm a senior in high school and I'm here for my friend. Let's call her Anna. She's super smart. She moved to St. Paul recently and she and her family are thinking about moving out of the city soon, and I never thought about housing before or zoning, but I would really like her to stay in the city and not move away because of the money, and I'd like her not to have that instability in her life so that she could focus on school, which she really should be doing. So I think single family, now having learned a little bit about it, I think single family zoning is completely unreasonable, and I think that we should need to work more on having a community where everyone can stay. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mohamed Liban, and I'm from Frogtown community. This is my city councilman, Dai Tao, and I'm an activist from that Frogtown community, and also I organize with ASEA. One of the important things I would like to say is one of the issues that communities face is issues of poverty. There's a lot of issue of poverty, and it's tied into equity. One of the greatest things that was part of is Walter Square. Walter Square was 163 unit that was owned by the community
from this, and it's a permanent affordable housing, and it has a community ownership component. I would like the council to consider the future funding supporting co-ops or similar that solve the issue in the long term. And the other thing I would like to add is my property tax went up 38%. That's a huge amount, but I'm willing to pay for it if the resources go into the community who need it the most. And I'm a big supporter of the public libraries and public parks. I'm very proud that I live close to the busiest public library, St. Paul, Randall Public Library. They do amazing programming. And I would like to add one that's saying that equity is very important, especially the community that has the least access to home ownership, the Muslim community here that has a lack of financial resource to go through home ownership. And biggest driver of poverty is ownership and lack of equity. I would like to consider the budget, the communities who need the equity the most. And the issue we're facing is issue related to poverty, and the only reason to solve the issue is through funding and supporting communities who need the most. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Be sure to sign in. All right. So are we up to our patient last speaker? Is there anyone else who's got a number still? Okay. All right. So it looks like there's two. All right. Come on up. You can just, ma'am, you can get started. Yep. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you. My name is Emilia Godinez, and I am the daughter of Mexican immigrants who never spoke English much other than for work. And I want to say that I am a property owner. I live on the east side. And I deliberately chose to live on the east side because I wanted to live among the poor people, to see what their realities really are. And also because we know social workers aren't lucrative. Anyway, I wanted to say that I have consistently worked with Latinos, with immigrants. I've worked with marginalized people, and I have also worked with the elderly. And so when I got my notice about property taxes going up 50%, frankly, I was just shocked. I was absolutely shocked that the city would do this to poor people on the east side. And of course I hear the rationale that, oh, isn't it wonderful? Your property values have gone up. This is wonderful, wonderful. I keep thinking to myself, not all of us are kind of middle class or upper striving property values. Many of us, I would say many of us, want to just live in our house and die in it. And I frankly would like to be carried on a stretcher. I don't want my property taxes going up to this extent. And frankly, having worked with immigrants who, no matter what their immigration status, were always able to find work, always able to find a place to live, always able to, and didn't want to be part of the programs here. I just think, I think we need to think a little more before we raise our taxes so much, because it really hurts us. It hurts us greatly. And also the trash referendum really hurt a lot of people. That's the one that really killed me. And it was no mistake upon me that it was all the poorer parts of St. Paul that voted against it. What are you folks thinking about? To really hurt all these people who are on limited income, fixed income? They share, for decades, they've been sharing a trash can with somebody because it's neighborliness, it's friendliness. And all of a sudden now, they all have to buy a service from a corporation that's not even from St. Paul. This does not sound like the Democratic Party. I'm really hurt. I just wish that our property taxes could be spent on things that are far more simple, but really help us out, like better, consistent snow plowing, immediately started. Don't wait till it's frozen over. I wish that they would do things like fix potholes.
I thought you were going to stop, but you are out of time.
I beg your pardon?
You're
Okay.
out of time.
Anyway, so I just want to say, and keep the streets, keep us safe, give us more police. It's one of the best things that you could ever invest in for all of us. Thank you.
Be sure to sign in. Are our numbers continuing to grow? No. Okay. Welcome.
Hi, President Councilmember Brendan Moen and everybody else. My name is Alicia Lucio, and this is
Maya Lucio,
my oldest daughter. I'm a mother of 3 kids, 3rd generation West Side. I've been elected on the Wesco board many times, and I'm also a youth worker. To me, it's extremely important for us to continue to fund the village, and even more than we already have. I work with kids, and wherever you see me, you typically, if you don't see one of my kids, you see one of my neighborhood babies or my work babies. But there aren't enough of me because there's not enough money to fund programming. And it's so important for these kids to have somebody that walks beside them, that they can trust, that they have to support them. And it was like, oh my gosh, Lisa always gets so emotional, but I do, because it's important. And we need people who care. And we need programs that will support our kids and our families, and not just our families, but our communities, our schools, our athletics, our streets, our blocks, all of it. Even earlier, somebody was like, man, like if I had my baby here, I wouldn't be able to stay. We also need to make meetings like this more family friendly. My kid's missing her homework to be here today. Go ahead.
Personally, I feel that I've actually benefited from a lot of programs at Neighborhood House and in the community. I'm actually, what was the one that I'm for my job?
Oh, that's hired.
Yeah, I'm in a program, like a job program, and I'm getting invested in community programs as well. But it's really hard to concentrate on school when your parents don't have jobs, or when your father's in jail, or when you're stressed out about your home life. And with those types of resources, it helps a lot to get homework help or to have people invest in your future. So thank you.
Fund the village.
Yep.
Fund our communities. Help our babies.
Thank you. And I do want to apologize. We have tried to make it a practice at this Truth in Taxation hearing to call out to people who are here with kids, young kids, and let them go first so that you can get to your homework. And we forgot to do that tonight. So thanks for reminding us.
It's also really great for her to be able to stay.
But it's great to.
So, you know.
Yep. Nope, it's both ways. But thanks for the reminder. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Tim Davis. I live at 1361 Ashland in Ward 1. My family has lived in the house since 1943. So when I got the tax increase proposal for next year, it was 43%. So I went back to my family and said, in all the years we have lived there, have we ever had this great of an increase? And the answer came back, no. I talked to a very lovely lady out here, and she gave me the new proposed taxes, and it came down to 33%. Guys, my grandmother raised 7 kids in that little house, 2-bedroom bungalow. We make do. But this is a big increase. Now I can afford it. But I want to know that the money's going to something that is beneficial to the city of St. Paul. And if you know the area I live in, a stone's throw from 8 Mill Road, Summit Avenue, and Hamlin, they're in terrible shape. Summit is so bad you can't drive 30 miles an hour down it anymore. So I need to know that you're going to use this money, that you're going to ask for me for a beneficial purpose for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, my name's Steve Ficker. I'm a member of MICA, and I live on the Green Line corridor. I'm here today because I'm very concerned that the policies and practice of this government are doing incredible damage to its poorest and most vulnerable residents. The ongoing failure of the city to enact meaningful, effective zoning and development policies, which would affirmatively further fair housing, is severely restricting the availability of housing selectively on the basis of race, color, disability, religion, and national origin. St. Paul is not meeting its fair housing obligations to provide equal access to affordable housing. The Housing Justice Center has identified the lack of funding for deeply affordable housing as the #1 fair housing need in the central cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. City subsidies should be reserved for projects that include affordable housing. Any housing development over 8 units in size should also be required by statute to include affordable housing. Any developments that receive city funding, TIF, deed, bonding, direct outlays, land transfers must include affordable housing. This includes downtown development. There should also be an inclusionary zoning ordinance for all buildings of 8 or greater units that 20% of the units be affordable. 1/3 at 20% area median income, 1/3 at 30% area median income, and 1/3 at 50% area median income. And right now, this is kind of like a boondoggle for developers right now. They're getting funding from the city, and they don't have to produce any affordable housing. And this has been going on for a long time. And you've got homeless problems, you've got violence in the city, and everybody's wondering what's the cause of this, you know? And that's one of the big factors.
Thank you. All right, I think that, it happened. Come on up.
I can't hear.
No, thank you so much. Be sure to sign in, sir. We've got our closer. We've got our closer. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, council members. My name is Naho Moore. I'm the new elected president of Mountain Council of Minnesota, and we represent the 18th clan, and we represent over 100 people, Hmong people in Minnesota, and right now the Hmong 18th Council is dealing with the gun violence and domestic violence in the Hmong community now. So the Hmong 18th Council is asking the city of St. Paul to help and support to deal with the gun violence and domestic violence for our children quality in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. All right. Looks like that is a wrap. I don't even know if we have to vote to close the public hearing. I think probably close it for them. All right. So Ms. Naker would move to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion prevails. Any discussion before we move on to the next item? Ms.
Just
Prince?
to thank everyone for
Yeah.
coming down. I took a lot of notes, and we'll be making decisions over the next week, so thank you.
Could I also?
Ms. Nelson?
I also want to briefly thank folks. I know it's a long night. I won't make you stay much longer, but at the beginning of this hearing, I felt like I looked around and like everyone I've ever worked on with something at the city was in this room, and not everybody made it to the end. I just like feel the power in the room. So thank you, community, for all that you do and for being here. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. All right, we're just going to give folks just a second to shuffle out the door and shift gears. Quick stretch. All right, so we are going to move on to the last items on our agenda, and I just want to explain the procedure that we're going to use in advance so that everyone understands. So we're taking the Ford Site redevelopment project as a combined staff report. We'll be listening to the staff on resolution public hearing 19388, which is a city council public hearing, and then as well as information about the HRA resolution 19-2066. We will hear the staff report. Then we will hold a public hearing. We'll go back to our traditional format of 15 minutes per side in support and in opposition. We will close the public hearing, and then the city council will recess, and the HRA will call itself to order. It will look strange because nothing will change up here, except for you'll hear the gavel, and Mr. Tolbert will begin chairing. We will have some comments from council members at that time. We'll vote on the HRA item, adjourn the HRA, and then reconvene the city council, vote on the council item, and then adjourn the meeting. So that is what our plan is. Let's stick with it. We will start with the reading of our item 19-388 and then go on to the staff report.
Item number 75, Resolution Public Hearing 19-388, approving an amendment to the capital improvement budget, declaring official intent to reimburse expenditures from the proceeds of tax-exempt bonds, authorizing interfund loans, providing for the use of project labor agreements in accordance with policy, and authorizing execution of a redevelopment agreement and related documents for the Ford Site redevelopment project.
All right. It's time for the staff report.
Show me the front door.
It happens.
Good evening, council members. I feel like we should take dancing lessons or something for that whole execution of all of the different hats that we're going to be wearing here. Good evening, Council President Bren Moen and council members. For the record, I'm Kristen Guild. I'm the Interim Director of Planning and Economic Development, and I'm here to present with John McCarthy, who's the Interim Finance Officer for the city these days. I am deeply honored to be here at the culmination of over a decade of both inspired and inspiring work on the Ford site. We have for your review tonight a successfully negotiated public-private partnership with Ryan Companies that will meet all and exceed many of the hopes and dreams that we have for this part of our city. From the very moment that Ford announced their plans to close their St. Paul plant, St. Paul has approached this as a key opportunity to shape a community and to build a 21st century community. St. Paul has been very, very proactive with this work, taking this as a key opportunity site on the Mississippi River. We've had a remarkably sustained effort. I've had a number of people tell me that St. Paul did everything right here, and I have to agree. It's been a tremendous demonstration of leadership with a remarkably sustained, proactive, and inclusive approach to defining a shared vision together. So right out of the gate, St. Paul established a Ford task force with 25 representatives representing the business community, affordable housing experts, water quality engineers, labor, parks advocates, of course, representatives from the Highland District Council and from Ford as well. And we've seen over 100 public meetings. There have been over 100 public meetings hosted to develop this vision for the site, and of course, multiple other strategies to engage a variety of people in the visioning and goal-setting work for this site. We also very intentionally reached out to the future residents of the Ford site as key stakeholders for what we wanted to see here. Early on, we worked with fifth graders at Highland Catholic to draw their vision, and this is one of the most comprehensive ones. So they have housing, retail, parks, restaurants, and if you look down on the lower right hand, you see that they even have new offices for the city council and mayor's office on the site.
And an airport.
And an airport. And there are a lot of free things here, too. So we want to see those free public amenities, right? We also worked with 8th graders at Highland Catholic and classes at Horace Mann and St. Paul Academy over the course of our planning efforts. With support from partners, numerous partners, both financial and technical support, we conducted 14 technical studies of the site, covering things like energy systems, stormwater management, the real estate market, job potential, and transportation. And of course, we engaged the Ford Motor Company throughout with their land division, engaged every step of the way, both on the Ford Task Force and at other touch points. And by the time that the plant closed in 2011, a consensus vision was emerging for residential development. So Ford made a commitment to the site and committed to clean the site to a residential standard so that we would be able to achieve that vision for the site. This work began in 2015 and ended just early this year with oversight throughout from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency. And the MPCA issued a certificate of completion in May 15th of this year, noting that the main parcel has been cleaned to a residential standard. As a result of these 10 years of study, discussion, visioning, and planning, St. Paul developed a very, very detailed master plan, which was adopted by the City Council in late 2017. The master plan articulated our vision for the site and a number of very ambitious goals related to affordable housing, parks, sustainability, jobs, and transportation choices. That master plan articulated a very, very clear message to the marketplace about what we wanted to see on this site. And shortly after we adopted it, Ford put the property up for sale. And soon thereafter, in early 2018, selected Ryan as the master developer and purchaser of the site. When Ryan came to the table, they very enthusiastically embraced the city's goals for the site and suggested that we form a public-private partnership to jointly achieve those goals. There's been a lot of work since Ryan came to the table in 2018 and 2019. Ryan led a number of community visioning sessions to refine the vision and put forward their proposal. They asked for some master plan amendments that were adopted in April of this year. The master plan remains intact and supports the continued core vision for the site, but there were tweaks to accomplish their vision for the site as well. And the city conducted a mandatory environmental review of Ryan's proposal. We looked at a number of things, including evaluating potential impacts to water quality, soils, air quality, utility capacity, and traffic. And one of the key findings of that environmental review is that the transportation network that is proposed for the site and surrounding will accommodate the additional development on the site. There are some mitigation measures that have been identified for traffic, including a number that are identified as Ryan's responsibility in the redevelopment agreement that's been negotiated. The AUAR does require that we update it collectively every 5 years, so we will be taking another look at it as the site is developed, and that allows for adjustments as the development is phased in. We've also been working very diligently over the past several months to negotiate a development agreement, and that agreement is the subject for this evening. So I will go through the meat of the public-private partnership at a high level, starting with the project financing and then through the lens of the city's goals for the site. And then John will go through the financing and the actions before you tonight in a little bit more detail. So starting with the project financing, this site is 122 acres and there is no infrastructure whatsoever on the site currently. It is entirely a blank slate. There aren't roads, there aren't sewers, there aren't utilities. And those would be things that we would see for other development sites, most development sites in the city. Infrastructure is a precondition to the development of the site, and therefore it's a precondition to achieving the goals that we have for the site. The total cost for the infrastructure and public parks is here on the green to the far right, $93.2 million. And the negotiated agreement has private sources paying for 1/3 of the upfront costs for public infrastructure, or $32.6 million. And then it calls for $60.6 million in investment by the city for infrastructure and parks, and that's mostly TIF that is generated by the private development on the site, $53.5 million of it. So the top part of this slide is the current actions before you, which are related to the financing for the infrastructure and parks. At the bottom end of the slide are future actions related to affordable housing. And I'll note that we very intentionally in the negotiations held the infrastructure investment using TIF low, held that down to preserve the ability to utilize that TIF resource that will be generated by the site for affordable housing investment, both on the site to meet our objectives here and elsewhere in the city for investments in affordable housing. Now, with affordable housing, we had particularly ambitious goals that were articulated in the master plan, and Ryan has committed to meet all of these goals. So 20% of the housing on the site will be income restricted affordable. That's 760 units of the 3,800 proposed for the site. 10% of the units will be deeply affordable, 380 units at 30% area median income, which right now for a family of four is $30,000 a year. 5% will be affordable at 50% or $50,000, and 5% will be affordable at 60% AMI or $60,000 a year. Our goals for affordable housing weren't just about the income levels on the site. We want to see this be a truly mixed income community with affordable units spread throughout the site. And this map shows everything in yellow that will have affordable units. So you can see that it's spread throughout the site. We also wanted to see a mix of housing types for affordable units, including ownership. And we do have, Ryan has formed a partnership with Habitat for Humanity, where 6 of the townhome units that are proposed at the southwestern end of the site will be affordable for ownership for families earning 60% of area median income. There will also be affordable units located in mixed income buildings throughout the site. You can see in the light yellow on the map, those will all be mixed income buildings that will be required to have at least 1% of the units in each building affordable at 60% area median income. That will not have any sort of public subsidy, so we will be leveraging the market investment in those buildings to achieve that affordability. The properties will be restricted to affordable housing. All of the ones shown in yellow will have restrictions on what can be constructed there, ensuring that we meet our affordability goals here. The compliance will be monitored annually. And each of these affordable housing developments, as they come online, will be carefully underwritten by city staff to ensure that we're maximizing the leverage and tapping all of the sources that would be available at any given time for affordable housing. And then if there are investments of TIF that appear necessary through our underwriting, that would be future actions by the HRA board. And we do expect that there will need to be some TIF investments in the affordable housing on the site, particularly to meet the very deeply affordable goals of 30% AMI. So the negotiated agreement with Ryan clearly exceeds the goals articulated in the master plan for parks and trails. We'll see 10 acres of new city parks here. There will be 4 new parks. They're shown here on the map in yellow. Plus, on top of that, and that exceeds the requirement of 90% park dedication, or 9% park dedication, and it will be approximately 11%. Then on top of that, we'll have 15 acres of non-park open space that will be privately maintained. That's shown on the map in red and orange. We'll have 5 miles of trails and connections. One of the key elements of the master plan for the site was a park amenity around a central water feature that would be also treating stormwater on the site. And that was reinforced by the Ryan proposal, and it remains a prominent part of the plan for the site. This slide just shows the connections between the site to and through with the regional parks in the area and connections to the Mississippi River. Related to energy and sustainability, I believe that this site will be a demonstration project in the nation for sustainable development, and that we'll see people coming to St. Paul to see how we've accomplished this here. There will be 100% of the electricity on the site will be carbon-free renewable sources. It will be home to the largest solar array in the Twin Cities, and all of the residential buildings will be built to be solar ready. All of the buildings will be extremely energy efficient, moving the bar toward net zero for an entire neighborhood. 50 acres of the site will be public space. That's 40% of the site. And Ryan has committed to planting at least 1,000 new trees on the site. We also have good news on the jobs front here. With the site build out, there are projected to be 14,500 mostly union construction jobs. All of the infrastructure development and all of the vertical development on the site will be subject to a project labor agreement. And one of the actions today includes a public hearing on the project labor agreements for the site. We expect that there will be 1,300 jobs when the site is fully built out, permanent jobs, living wage jobs in both office and retail. The project financing slide previewed the tax base outcomes for the city. The current value of the site is $40 million, and we are projecting that the tax value with the investments will exceed $1 billion. That's a 25-fold increase, and for context, the total St. Paul tax base is $24 billion. St. Paul has talked a lot over the years about a vision for complete streets for our city, and this will be the first time that that's fully built out here on the Ford site. There will be lots of options for mobility, pedestrian, bike, transit, and also for car, and strong connectivity with the surrounding neighborhood and with parks. We'll be adding 5 miles of pedestrian and bike paths and a dedicated transit way on Cretin. With this, I'll hand it off to John to provide more detail on the project financing and then also the actions before you today.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. I'm John McCarthy with OFS. As Director Guild just outlined several of the ambitious goals for this site, I get the job of walking you through the wonky details that will allow us to achieve some of those goals. Starting back on the high-level finance plan, the only information that I'd like to add here is to get into a little bit more detail on especially the private sources that are being contributed to the project. As Director Guild referenced, over $32 million of private investment to go towards this infrastructure build-out. 14 million of which is developer funds that Ryan will bring to the project as the master developer. Another 18 million of which are real estate charges to private properties in the form of special assessments for street construction projects, as well as green infrastructure fees for the stormwater management system build out. And again, as Director Guild referenced, over $1 billion in taxable market value, so a significant return on the city's investment through this public-private partnership. There are 2 actions in front of you this evening, one for the HRA board and one for the city council. Taken together, those 2 actions will allow for the execution of the redevelopment agreement, the approval of the project labor agreement, and 2 budget amendments, one for the HRA board and one for the city council, which combined will allow for the build out of the infrastructure on the site, as well as the preservation of TIF for future affordable housing on the site. Going to a little bit more detail on the specific budget actions in front of you this evening, the city budget action will establish a budget, a capital improvement project budget for city infrastructure costs. So when we talk about that $93 million infrastructure budget, only a portion of that will flow through the city budget, specifically the financing sources that you see here, including city borrowing that would be backed by both special assessments and the green infrastructure fees, as well as the city's share of TIF resources and the other more typical capital project sources that you see in city capital budgets, like the $5.7 million of CIB bonds for city park construction and $1.3 million of municipal state aid for future street improvements. So all in, that creates a $44 million city budget, again, a subset of that larger $93 million infrastructure. This slide shows how that infrastructure will actually how that funding will actually be spent through the city budget. Again, the majority of that is going to be build out of the street grid on the site, as well as the sewer and water connections and the innovative stormwater management facilities that are going to be envisioned throughout the site. So all public sources that are going for the build out of public infrastructure that the city will own once it's all completely constructed. The HRA budget amendment that's in front of you tonight deals with the entire Ford TIF budget. So back in March of 2016, the original Ford TIF budget was established at $275 million. The budget that's in front of you tonight maintains that same level, but makes some line item adjustments within the original budget. Once amended, this TIF budget will allow for the $53 million of TIF that will go for public infrastructure build out on the site, as well as preserving substantial resources for future affordable housing on the site. One of the key components of, as Director Gill touched on, of the development of the finance plan was making sure that we could preserve a substantial amount of TIF for the future affordable build out to help us reach those goals. We've talked a little bit about the $27 million of affordable housing TIF that will be available for citywide affordable housing. So not just on the site, but $27 million that's available throughout the city. So those are the specific actions that are in front of you this evening, but there will be future actions related to Ford coming back in front of both the City Council and the HRA Board. First, there'll be some of the funding for this project will be financed through borrowing, meaning that OFS and PED will be back before you for bond sale approvals. Additionally, the affordable housing actions will all come back to you. Each project, as they're ready for development, will come back to you for HRA Board approval. And I want to get into, as we previously touched on the high-level finance slide, there's $27 million of TIF available for citywide affordable housing and another $115 million of TIF available for affordable housing on site. In addition to that, the finance plan's envisioned a TIF pairing strategy which would match affordable projects with similarly timed market rate projects and pull those two projects out together and create from the redevelopment TIF district and create a affordable housing TIF sub-district. We're trying to, you can see the pink and black housing diagram here to try to visually show what that would look like. The idea there is to leverage the market strength of the site to create additional resources for affordable housing on site, and that helps us achieve those deeply affordable goals that we're trying to envision for the affordable build out on the site. All of those actions will come back to you every time we pull out a new TIF district. Those actions will come back to you for HRA Board review as well. As we wrap up here, I want to acknowledge that this is a substantial investment for the city, and I want to recognize the planning and housing and finance and legal teams that worked to put this plan together, and recognize that they also understood the responsibility that this investment requires. And so throughout the creation of this plan, both the finance plan and the vision for the site, the teams worked very hard to build in protections for both the city and their HRA to limit the city's risk. There's a long list of the protections that are built into this plan on this slide. I'm not going to run through all of them, but I do want to highlight a few important ones for you tonight. First is the Site Improvement Performance Agreement, which established the specifications for all of the city infrastructure on the site and establishes a review process for how the city will accept that infrastructure once it's constructed. There's also property restrictions for all the affordable housing parcels, meaning that the land can only be used for affordable development. There's a minimum assessment agreement, which sets a minimum assessed value for properties on the site to generate sufficient TIF in order to meet our obligations. And there's also provisions built in that cost overruns are the developer's responsibility and cost savings are shared with the city. And with that, that concludes our presentation, and Director Gill and I are happy to take any questions that you might have.
I do have a quick question for you. I'm very supportive of the plan. And I've mentioned this to you in a few of our briefing sessions, but one thing that I feel like is missing is robust participation from the state of Minnesota on this project. Just being that it's huge, transformative, it's very close to the airport, close to our major transportation networks. I mean, there's clearly a regional benefit, and it answers a call for a significant increase in affordable housing. And so I would really like to see our legislature and governors step up and participate in this to help reduce the need for so much TIF to finance the project. I'm not sure what that would look like. I'm not sure if there is some state participation that is still in the works, or what that would look like, but I do feel like that is missing at this time.
Sure. Council President Brenmo, one of the bullets on the future on the protection slide that I did not highlight is that the city is currently has applied for a state grant to help with the construction of the stormwater management system. That's a grant that would be up to $7 million if awarded, and it would come out of the city's contribution for the site. So that would buy down the TIF that we have dedicated for infrastructure by up to $7 million if awarded, and we think we have a good opportunity to secure that grant because of the exciting nature of the stormwater system that we have planned for the site.
Great. That seems like a good start. Ms. Naker.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. McCarthy, and it is so exciting to see all of our goals being met on this site. Can you talk a little bit about how the investment of TIF on this site will allow us to stay within our 10% goal for taxable value in the city, and how much that leaves available for projects, redevelopment projects elsewhere citywide?
Yes, Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Naker, as you know, our TIF capacity goal is our policy is to have 10% or less of the capacity in the city. Right now, we are at, with this fully online, we'd be at 9.6% for a few years, and we actually have the Minnesota Events TIF District will close out in 2023, so that by 2024, we would have substantial capacity back to the city. So there's just that short period of overlap where we would be at 9.6, still well under our 10% goal, and still I believe that allows for 86 million of capacity within TIF. So still substantial capacity to be able to do projects throughout the city. And again, it's just for that 2-year overlap period before the events district closes out.
Okay, any other questions about the financing or about the plan before we go to public hearing? And then we'll also have an opportunity for comments after the public hearing. Mr. Tao, then Ms. Prince.
Thank you. Ms. Gill, you brought up the AUAR, and there was a recommendation for traffic mitigation. Can you talk a little bit about what those mitigations are? I know you cover some of the transportation choice, but I'd like to hear some detail.
Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Tao, sure. There are a number of intersection modifications that are recommended in the AUAR. Some signal changes, some calls to signalize intersections. The primary intersections that are identified for Ryan's work are Ford Parkway and Cretin Avenue, Ford Parkway and Mount Curve, and Montreal and Cretin, as areas where, directly adjacent to and within the site where there will need to be some improvements to the intersections to manage the traffic flows. But overall, the mitigations were fairly minor that were recommended.
Just a quick follow-up. And typically, if we do those mitigation traffic flow, it's easy for public work and public work to make adjustment as we if other issue arise. Is that something we could be expected?
Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Tao, yes, and in fact that's why I highlighted that the AUAR, the environmental review, needs to be refreshed every 5 years, because as we see traffic patterns change, we'll be taking another look back at what we're seeing and what further mitigation, if any, needs to happen there.
Thank you.
Ms. Prince.
Yeah, and could you just explain a little bit more? It's so confusing to me about the way in which the 27 million is generated to be used citywide, because I think that's a really important thing for the rest of the city to understand about the value of this project to everyone.
Council President Brenmo and Councilmember Prince. So the HRA policy is that 10% of the TIF plan budget is dedicated for pooling for affordable housing citywide. So that's standard policy. So at 10% of a $275 million TIF budget generates $27 million. So that's leveraging the market value of the site and being able to use that for affordable housing citywide to help supplement the housing trust fund and for other projects as they come up.
Ms. Jalali.
Could you explain a little? I think it's kind of hard for the average person to get their head around $275 million in TIF, and a real site like this builds out over time, and there are phases, and the financing plan is actually kind of like staggered over many years, and like there's different chunks that happen. And so can you just kind of help us understand what the flow of that looks like over time a little bit so that it's more expanded than just the top line number? Does that question make sense?
Sure. Council President Bremo and Councilmember Nelson. So I think the key piece is that the actions that are in front of you this evening are around reaffirming that $275 million, but you're dedicating that $53 million of TIF for the public infrastructure, which is the first phase of work on the site. So we're reserving the market strength of the site to be able to build out that public infrastructure for that $53 million. The rest of that 275 is preserved for future actions that will come back to you in the form of likely affordable housing projects as they are ready for development. So those will occur over time as each one comes back and is individually underwritten, as Director Guild referenced.
Okay, thanks for breaking apart what we're doing here versus the overall and what's already existing. I think that just can get lost sometimes,
Sure.
So I appreciate it.
Are there more questions? Okay, so we will switch gears and go to our public hearing. And as I mentioned, we'll go with our traditional 15 minutes per side and start with folks who are here in opposition. And then we'll move on to folks who are here in support. If you're here in opposition, come on up. Welcome and thanks for sticking with us tonight.
Thank you. My name is Kathy McGuire. I live on Fairmount Avenue in St. Paul. Council President and members of the council, I'm here this evening representing Neighbors for a Livable St. Paul. It is our intention that the public record reflect the following. Neighbors for a Livable St. Paul has requested the city to conduct a public meeting to explain TIF and to provide genuine public engagement with citizens who have questions and concerns about this investment, and that such a meeting take place prior to any decision on TIF. We are asking for public transparency to see the Ryan Company's application to the HRA prior to the City Council decision. It is our understanding that the City Attorney's Office was reviewing this application to determine what information could be made available to the public, but we have not seen that yet. We officially express concern and disagreement with this plan, a plan conceived by the city, rezoned by the city, an AUAR drafted by the city, a TIF agreement written by the city, and a TIF agreement soon to be passed by the city. This plan has had no checks, no balances, no alternative perspectives. No amount of public comment has altered your plan. And now the plan is forcing the use of tax increment financing upon a city that is financially weak. You have assembled a plan that may be fashionable. It may emulate the trend in urban planning to which you aspire. But to assume that this plan can be plunked into the middle of any neighborhood in any city, regardless of any other financial or geographic circumstances, is an error of great proportion. How have St. Paul TIF projects improved the city thus far? 20% of the people in our city live below the poverty level. Where are the plans for attracting sustainable long-term employment, not just temporary construction jobs? Our schools are underfunded, Criminal fatalities have reached a 25-year high. Our police department is understaffed, our infrastructure is not maintained, and our taxes continue to increase. History shows that taking on additional debt and tying up tax revenues with TIF has not produced positive outcomes. As a result, many U.S. cities are suffering serious financial consequences. Many organizations and cities across the nation are speaking out and advising against this overuse or inappropriate use of TIF. At the same time that you are encouraging the creation of a mini metropolis that will have the highest population density anywhere in the city, you are making no provision for paying for the increase of city services that will result from your plan. The use of TIF requires that the land be blighted, but this parcel is in no way blighted. In fact, it has been described by officials as the best real estate parcel in the Midwest. TIF also requires that the parcel's development would not occur without taxpayer subsidy. Clearly, the Ford site fails this but-for test. Developers would surely not require subsidy to work on the best real estate parcel in the Midwest. You are planning to approve TIF millions that will greatly benefit the Ford Land Company, developers, and real estate investors. But St. Paul citizens will be footing the bill for 25 years. Neighbors for Livable St. Paul respectfully requests that this decision on TIF be postponed until the citizens can be given an opportunity to fully understand what this means for taxpayers and for the future of our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're coming into the final stretch. Good evening, council members. My name is Kate Hunt, and I'm a resident of Ward 3. Again, I echo Kathy's request to postpone the approval of this TIF recommendation for Ford until our questions are answered. Because we've had unanswered questions and speculative claims about the benefits of using taxpayer money, too many to warrant tonight's approval of TIF. And we've seen confusing and fluctuating TIF amounts from the $275 million that was allotted to this pot that's available for the Ford site. And we are warned that this amount might not be the final amount. From a taxpayer's perspective, it feels a lot like a shell game. So before any TIF vote is taken, city officials must conduct a transparent, accurate, and understandable public justification for using this massive amount of money. And it must be done in a public forum where citizens can meaningfully participate in a question and answer. The public forum must tackle larger historic and future what-if questions that have not been answered. St. Paul's HRA manages over 60 TIF, 26-year projects, many of them for affordable housing that bring in increment revenues of $100,000 to $700,000 per year. From a historic perspective, have these massive, decades-long taxpayer investments improved affordable housing, lowered our tax burden? The answer is we are burdened with unsustainable year after year increased tax levies, and the affordable housing crisis increases. We hear about the benefits of TIF investment, but what is the cost of this subsidy of hundreds of millions of dollars for 26 years? Since each subsidy dollar must be taxed out of the budget, any valid analysis must include this corresponding cost. Where will the city make up this subsidy cost to deliver basic city services for the next 26 years? Compass Rose, Baker Tilly developed the TIF eligibility and scope before TIF was approved the first time in 2013, and Springstead is the bond advisor. How do we know that their assumptions, projections, and conclusions from these consultants are accurate today? These reports should be publicly re-examined to verify that their findings are accurate. Finally, what would happen if the $1.3 billion valuation for the site is overly optimistic, or if the real estate market downturn occurs, resulting in the $250 million subsidy generating less revenue and the city is still on the hook to pay the debt service? If these economic scenarios or worse occur, how will the city make up for even more tax revenue loss and continue to provide basic city services for over 26 years? So I ask you, please pause, delay the vote, and engage with the public to provide reasonable, understandable answers to these what-if questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition tonight? All right, we will reset the clock and invite people here to speak in support.
Madam Chair, City Councils. Hello, I'm Dr. Tom Kotke, Medical Director for Wellbeing at Health Partners, and immediate past president of the Twin City Medical Society. I live in the 4-4 at 571 Otis Avenue, and I frequently pass by the Ford site in the summer as I ride my bike to work. My comments are my personal opinion, but facts are the facts. First of all, I'd like to thank the City Council for proposing and Ryan Companies for committing to building affordable housing on the Ford site. As my co-authors in the paper I just gave out to you have passed out, stable housing is critical for health and well-being. All municipalities have a need for entry-level workers and truly affordable housing that is near to their places of employment, where they shop, where their children attend schools, is vital to their health, the health of their families. Truly affordable housing reduces homelessness, a burden on the health of individuals and the economic and psychological health of communities. Please write a strong contract. Too often, the neglect of the cost of long commutes. We neglect those when we calculate the cost of housing. But data show that the commute is the major negative aspect of everybody's day. And not only does it detract from well-being, we know that long commutes are associated with traffic fatalities, heart attacks, diabetes, and because they're obesogenic, long commutes are probably also carcinogenic.
Dr. Kotke?
Yes.
I wanted to let you know, because you got started right away, that there are about 10 people.
Okay, I will wrap up, but thank you very much. We support this. I personally support this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And be sure to sign in.
Council President Bridmoen, City Council. My name is Bobby Casper. I'm the president of St. Paul Regional Labor Federation, representing approximately about 156 unions, 58,000 union members. I'm here tonight to let you know that St. Paul is a union town. We've always known that. And it was unfortunate that we lost the Ford Assembly plant. The plant provided middle-class jobs that supported families and helped build communities. It was a travesty to a lot of us. We were heartbroken. Although the plant closed, the St. Paul Regional Labor Federation and more than 150 affiliated unions are excited about this project and what will be happening on this site in the next coming years. We know that this project will be an economic engine for the city. It shouldn't just stand there. We need something to happen over there, right? In the end, results will include new places for St. Paulites to live, affordable housing, work, and much-needed tax revenues to support essential public services. The project will create approximately, you heard this before, about 14,500 construction jobs. I come out of a construction union. It gave me a second life. We need to be finding jobs for these people in these communities. You talk about the homeless, and the people who are unemployed, this is a very, very good investment. We hope these jobs are filled with well-trained tradespeople working under a project labor agreement. If you don't know what that means, you can come ask me later on. We believe in that. We thank you for your efforts to ensure that the Ford site will continue to benefit the community for generations to come. I commend you all for hearing us tonight and ask you again to make sure this is a project labor agreement. Thank you so much.
Council President, members of the council, my name is Tony Barranco, 4439 Fremont Avenue South in Minneapolis. Thanks again for taking time. I'll be brief with my comments tonight. First of all, I want to thank city staff. I want to thank our project partners. I certainly want to thank my colleagues at Ryan for their tireless work to get this done. We've been working hard for 18 months to try to figure out a formula that puts all of the dreams of the Ford project together. And we're here tonight with a plan that works. I want to thank the Ford Motor folks for their patience and willingness to work with both the city and our team to get to the point that we are. As Director Guild shared, this plan is really unique. This plan is nothing like we've ever worked on. Buying a piece of property and immediately granting 55 acres of space for public parks, for ball fields, for privately owned but publicly accessible space, it's nothing that we'd ever have done. And it's one of the most amazing projects that we've had a chance to work on. We acknowledge that this is a significant public investment, but quite simply, we would not be here tonight without the public-private partnership that we've crafted with the City of St. Paul and the diligent work that we've done over the course of the last number of months. We need the funds for infrastructure. This site is a great site. It is development. It is not yet ready for development, and it needs the infrastructure to be there. And but for the delivery of that infrastructure, all of these dreams that we're talking about would not be a reality. At the end of the day, we've been working on this hard. It's not exactly, we didn't get everything that we started with, but this plan is a great plan. And while we are nervous about it, this plan will work, and we are committed to do it. And that's shown in the commitments that we're making to both the city and to the development agreement. So very much looking forward to seeing this project emerge, and I'd like to yield the rest of my time to some of our other project partners.
Hello, everybody. My name's Khalik. I'm a St. Paul resident. I don't have a poster, but over the years, I've been the poster boy for a lot of different initiatives in the city, such as Right Track, Genesis Works, and current student at the U of M, studying business analyst. I'm a business analyst major. And so I'm also a part of a coalition called United for Action. I was previously here on May 1st discussing the issues amongst youth and family homelessness and affordable housing. And so I'm really excited to see that there's something being done about this and that there's a space for affordable housing at the Ford plant. And a lot of things that correlate to that that I think that should also be mentioned is education. Education is a big, income and education go hand in hand. And the higher I get into my education, the less I see of people that look like me as well. In fact, my advisor that I received upon coming to the U of M told me that, man, you are the only black male here that I'm advising this whole entire semester. And that's not what they had on their pamphlet when I went to the school to see if I wanted to actually go there at the U. And so correlating education correlates to better jobs and better income. And I think that should be a part of the plan as well when it comes to housing, is how are people being educated and what platforms are in place to ensure that as they're in affordable housing, how are they getting out of that and getting into the actual market for middle class living or just out of poverty as a whole. So thank you for your time and appreciate you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We're giving you the squeeze here. I don't know.
I'm going to be brief, I promise.
I promise.
I know that there's still a lot of people. Council President, council members, my name is Don Mullen, and I represent the St. Paul Building and Construction Trades Council here locally. I sent you a letter earlier this week, and I hope that all you received it, so I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time and reliving all the letter. I think the biggest thing, one of the things I wanted to say is I was doing a little counting as we were listening to the speakers earlier, and I'll tell you, there's about 120 days left until spring. And that's significant on a couple different things. Not only is because are we that much closer to summer, but by spring, with your support tonight, we could be digging dirt over there at Ford and creating a lot of opportunity. 14,500 construction jobs. No, they're not temporary jobs. Those are life jobs. Those are careers. I was doing a little bit of research just to kind of understand Ford and going back into the 20s, and I noticed that there was this great community over there that was built around the Ford manufacturing. When I was younger and I was still in the field, I spent a lot of time over there at the UAW as they in their union hall that was right across the street. There's a great community over there, and we can continue to build that great community. So I would just ask you and thank you for your consideration and ask you for your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Council President, council members, Paul Williams, President of PPL, Project for Pride and Living, 1706 Hillcrest Avenue in St. Paul. Just want to say how you all know how critical the housing shortage is in this region. We need 10,000 additional units on top of what we currently produce statewide. The bulk of those really need to come in the metro area. I'm a proud resident of Hillcrest. I'm grateful for the process that has taken place over these many, many years, including my time here in City Hall. A lot of hard work has gone on, and I'm grateful. And for PPL's part, I just want to say we are here for the long haul. And in our partnership to really deliver on these very ambitious goals, we're going to get there.
And good evening. I'm Cecile Bedore. I'm the Executive Vice President of Common Bond Communities, and I'm at 4904 Oakland Avenue in Minneapolis, but I love St. Paul because it's always sunny over here. I had prepared remarks as well, but I guess I want to echo exactly what Paul said, but also, the day that my appointment as PED Director, which I served in from 06 to 14, was the same day that Ford announced their closure. So you think about that, it's almost 14 years, and it took a really long time to get to where we are, and I just really want to applaud you for getting it right and taking the time that you need, and most importantly to really carving out this affordable housing, particularly for the lowest income at 30%. There's not a lot of locational choice for those folks in the Highland Park neighborhood, and you're opening an opportunity for them. And those are also the same people who work at a lot of the businesses in Highland Park, so to be able to live and work in your neighborhood is really important. We are really excited about this. We're really happy that we were chosen to work with Ryan to be the two partners to build the multifamily apartments. Between our two organizations, we have extensive experience. Common Bond 2 is in for the long haul. We've sold one building in our 50 years of experience, and we are ready to get going. I just want to make one point about the leverage issue around this. We are perfectly aware of the fact that the City of St. Paul will be our partners in that, but we need to bring in a lot of other partners as well, and we have every intention of doing so. So we really applaud your work. We're really excited about it, and I personally am just so excited after all these years to see this come to fruition. So we strongly urge your support, and thanks for your time.
Thanks, both of you guys. It kind of looked like the Academy Awards. It's incredible. Thanks to both of you for your leadership on this as well.
Good evening, Council President and members. My name is Bea Kyle. I'm the President and CEO of the St. Paul Area Chamber of Commerce, and I represent businesses who at last count include about 1.6 million employees across the region and the world, actually. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to comment about the proposed TIF district plan for the Ford site. We wholeheartedly support the investment plan as proposed, and may I say congratulations, 13 years, 2 administrations, and the city never wavered on this plan. It's really quite impressive. Given my specific experience at the Port Authority, I also wanted to make a point about I have seen how TIF I've seen firsthand how TIF can absolutely transform a community. It's quite an effective economic development tool. When this project is completed, the value of the infrastructure and buildings on this site will be in the ballpark of $1 billion. That value will make it one of the largest private real estate investments in the city's history. And once built out, after the public investment is paid for, it's estimated that the site will continue to produce over $18 million in new tax revenue annually. That's real impact long term. In 2017, SPAC voiced support for this project while also encouraging zoning and development to facilitate job creation, to replenish and expand jobs informally located on the Ford plant. I would say the loss of industrially zoned land is worth noting and pausing on, because such a financial loss can't be recouped with the redevelopment of commercial and residential. That said, we're impressed with the sustainable community model developed by the city, Ryan, and Xcel Energy. We have no doubt that this project will prove to be a national scale demonstration of what a community can do, working together to bring a sustainable next generation project to the market. And thank you for your investment, your support, your partnership, and again, warmest congratulations.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council President and City Council members. My name is Ben, and I direct our Built Environment Program at Fresh Energy. I'm also a resident of Ward 4. As an independent energy nonprofit working to speed the transition to a clean energy economy, Fresh Energy recognized the potential for the Ford site to be a nationally renowned demonstration site for cold climate, carbon neutral buildings. As an organization, we are very excited and supportive of this huge investment in our community. St. Paul's 2015 greenhouse gas inventory study found that 52% of citywide carbon emissions come from the building sectors, and the city's draft climate action plan outlines a goal to be carbon neutral by 2050, and we have a really long way to go. For nearly a decade, the city has required stricter energy standards for buildings that get more than $200,000 worth of funding as part of the sustainable building policy. This was updated last year to include buildings with large-scale renovations and allows multiple paths for compliance. But for energy, this relies on the SB 2030 standard, which is also required for state bonding buildings. The SB 2030 is a progressive energy policy standard that steps down over time, requiring 80% more efficient buildings beginning in 2020. To a 2005 baseline, and will step down to 90% more efficient in 2025 and require net zero buildings in 2030. As we've heard tonight, the city will be investing substantially more than $200,000 on a per building basis. Therefore, Ryan has agreed to take on these standards, which we're thrilled about. Additionally, Ryan Company has pledged to providing 100% renewable electricity sites. Sorry.
I just
Sorry, am I going?
You're in your groove, but we're really running out of time, so I just wanted to draw your attention to that since there's two people behind you.
All right, I will skip ahead.
Skip ahead to the part that says.
All right. So Ryan Company has proposed acquiring renewable energy credits, or RECs, from the Ford Site Dam that is currently owned by Brookfield Power to provide clean energy to the site, which we think is a great opportunity. However, since the dam has been in operation for almost 100 years, we do not think that these energy credits should be counted toward the SB 2030 building standards because they're outside the spirit of new and additional renewable energy. Additionally, we think the Ford site is a great opportunity to expand non-natural gas buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know the time goes really fast when you're up there, but thank you. And also, if you have written comments, you can submit them as well to the record.
Hi, good evening, Council President and Council members. My name is Tony Giuliani. I reside at 2154 Pinehurst Avenue, St. Paul. I'm a Ward 3 resident, but I'm here mainly to speak on behalf of St. Paul Highland Ball and want to voice our support of the project and our appreciation for the act of kindness from Ryan in including the two ball fields, which benefits more than 800 kids annually, and that's baseball and softball during the season. In the off season, we're talking flag football, we're talking soccer, and also our Highland Friendship Club friends. We also want to recognize the efforts of the St. Paul City Council, especially Councilmember Tolbert, in moving this towards resolution and taking the time to care for Highland Ball in this process. We look forward to our continued relationship with Ryan, the city, and 60 more years.
Thank you. Can you do this in like 30 seconds?
I can. Hi, council members. My name is Dan Hintz. I don't represent anybody, but I do live a couple of blocks away from the Ford site, and I couldn't be more excited about the plan that's going forward. I think the communication over the last few years has been great. I think Ryan has done a great job. I think my Representative Councilmember Tolbert has done a great job. I've been really happy with everything. The speakers tonight, the other people who've come up and spoken in support tonight have just reinforced my belief that this is a really great project, and I urge you to do everything you can to move this forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So Mr. Tolbert would move to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion prevails. We will now recess the St. Paul City Council.
Opposed? We're adjourned.
In the St. Paul City Council, back to order. Roll call.
Tolbert, Busuri, Jalali Nelson, Naker, Prince, Tao, Council President Brett Moen. 7 present, no one absent.
And I'm sure folks have had a chance to brush up on the item that we previously was read by Ms. Moore in the past few moments, so I won't have you read it again. But we have had a public hearing on item resolution, public hearing 19-388, and closed that public hearing. Are there any discussion, further discussion on this item?
Give our speeches again.
Everyone, cue it up. If there's no discussion, Mr. Tolbert moves approval. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion prevails.
7 in favor, no one opposed. The resolution is adopted.
And if there's nothing else to come before us, we're adjourned.